Chapter 324 Heaven Sect, Immortal King Legend. After LV Batian left, Guan followed down the staircase, continuing to watch the excitement. Now the mystic heart realm combat was underway. Its spectacle reflected upon the sky, inciting copious discussions among the disciples in the valley. How formidable! Is this what the mystic heart realm is like? What's this? Just wait until you see the Mahayana realm combat. That is truly thrilling, not to mention the immortal combat. Even here within the valley, you can feel a sense of oppression. It's an eye-opener. I wonder if we'll ever reach this stage? How could we not? Cultivate diligently, enter the third medicine valley, and your starting point will already be higher than 90% of the disciples. That's right. Even if one is a scion of a noble family, without sufficient aptitude, they start as servant disciples too. Do you know about Li Ya from Divine Exotic City? He's my master's junior brother, and they entered the Medicine Valley on the same day. I know. My master once said that Li Ya often used to cry, feeling hopeless about his future. It was my master who inspired him. As the disciples conversed, their topics began to digress. The third Medicine Valley's replacement of old and new was rapid, with many new disciples joining each year. The number of disciples registered in the valley had already surpassed 1,800. Guan naturally mingled among the groups of disciples without causing a disturbance. They didn't need to stand to greet each other or harbor suspicions, a mood that arose from Guan's amiable manner, which also shaped the disciples' approach to interaction and life. Guan sat beside an Exian and inquired about the previous battles. Before an Exian could reply, Yu Yingying came and sat down on Guan's other side, eagerly jumping into the conversation and briefing him on the situation. Her excitement stemmed from the great cultivators of the Star Sea congregations who also came to participate, including a senior she admired. She believed that this senior could capture first place on the immortal list. To this, Guan merely smiled. This immortal list tournament was a gathering of sleeping dragons and crouching tigers, with many who concealed their true cultivation level and identities. Aspiring to the first place was very difficult. The arrival of a divine immortal of wondrous dharma to participate baffled Guan. What was their reasoning? No matter how you looked at it, the divine immortal of wondrous dharma's participation in the immortal list tournament seemed to devalue their status, and they might even provoke the sword venerable Fudao, leading to a deadly disaster. Guan couldn't understand. The immortal spirit dynasty sent people, the holy court also sent delegates, and now, the mysterious divine immortal of wondrous dharma appeared as well. But what comes is to be accepted. Currently, the divine immortal of wondrous dharma still remained a mysterious presence, seen but never met. The carefree primordial immortal stood as the highest entity the immortal cultivation sects could reach. As for the Tao Void mysterious immortal, who existed one realm higher, Guan had not yet encountered any. An Xian thought that the nine-finger divine lord could win first place, sparking a debate with Yu Yingying. Given Nzin's temperament, she naturally could not out-argue Yu Yingying. Guan couldn't just watch his precious disciple get pushed around, so he joined the debate, quickly causing Yu Yingying's face to flush red. 2 days swiftly passed by. On this day, in the early morning hours, although dawn had just broken, many figures were already bustling about in the city. Within a narrow alley, Zhang Xianwang from the Immortal Spirit Dynasty stopped in his tracks. Tilting his head slightly, he glanced askew at the person behind him. "Why do you follow me?" Zhang Xianwang asked calmly. Standing behind him was a white-haired old man, exuding an air of immortality. His mere presence compelled the passing cultivators at the alleyway entrance to take another look. The white-haired elder stared at Zhang Xianwang and inquired, "Why has one from the Immortal Dynasty come to this place?" Zhang Xianwang turned to face the elder, his expression indifferent as he countered, "If you do not answer, how shall I?" The elder replied, "You may call me Heaven Sect." Heaven Sect. Zhang Xianwang's face paled, a look of incredulity spreading across it as he exclaimed, "Heaven Sect? How is that possible? 50,000 years ago, had you not already?" Heaven Sect interrupted. "It's your turn to answer now." Zhang Xianwang's gaze flickered. He remained silent for a moment. "You probably don't want to cause a conflict here. Surely there are holy court cultivators within the supreme sect." The emotionless tone of Heaven Sect sent chills down one's spine. Taking a deep breath, Zhang Xianwang said, "I'm here to recruit Sword Venerable Fudao." "And you?" Heaven Sect replied, I come for an old acquaintance. An old acquaintance? Who? Since our purposes do not conflict, let's not disturb each other any further. Having said that, Heaven's Sect turned to leave. Just then a voice called out, Taoist friend Zhang, what brings you here? The speaker was none other than Guan, approaching Heaven's Sect head-on, the two passing each other. Heaven's Sect, Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma Realm 7th Layer 789023/1700000/1750000. A formidable old monster who has lived for 788,000 years. On the 7th layer of the Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma Realm, that's frightening, almost catching up to me. Guan thought to himself as he looked at Zhang Xianwang, his face breaking into a surprised smile. Seeing Guan, Zhang Xianwang couldn't help but smile. After Heaven's Sect left the alley, Guan then asked, Who was that person just now? Were they troubling you? Do you need me to contact the Deacon Hall? Hearing this made Zhang Xianwang smile even more. He laughingly said, No trouble at all. But do you know what his cultivation level is? What cultivation level? Divinity Transformation Realm? Void Crossing Realm? Or Unification? As he continued, Gu An's voice rose several notches in apprehension. Zhang Xianwang, bemused, changed the subject. What brings you here? Guan responded, I came to purchase seeds for medicinal herbs. And you? The two began to chat, and Zhang Xianwang, favorably impressed by Guan, did not fuss about their disparity in cultivation level and conversed as equals. After a while, Guan asked, You seem quite impressive. Did you sign up for the Immortal List tournament? No, I'm here for a different matter. May I help you with it? There's no need for that. All right then, I won't disturb you any further. Guan bowed in farewell, then departed. Zhang Xianwang watched him go, a hint of hesitation in his heart. Guan pondered why Zhang Xianwang sought to recruit him. He had previously thought the Immortal Spirit Dynasty was rather xenophobic and unlikely to be recruiting him into their ranks, meaning it must be some other scheming. After leaving the alley, Guan continued wandering about the city, planning to buy some interesting trinkets for Tian Yaoer to lift her spirits. Managing the outer world cave was quite taxing. Guan had to show favor to keep her from feeling disheartened. Just after passing 2 streets, Guan spotted Heaven's Sect. As they were about to pass by each other, Heaven's Sect suddenly raised a hand and held onto Guan's shoulder. Guan quirked an eyebrow, feeling uneasy about being touched on the shoulder. He turned his head toward Heaven's Sect, asking in surprise, You, huh? Are you the same person from before? Heaven's Sect's eyes were fixed on the Immortal King crown on Guan's forehead, his gaze piercing. Guan felt his heart drop. Could it be that this person saw through the disguise of the Immortal King crown? Leave the Supreme Sect tonight, and I will find you, offering you a chance for rebirth anew. With these words, Heaven's Sect turned and walked away. Guan was confused. From Heaven's Sect's statement, it seemed that he hadn't guessed that Guan was Sword Venerable Fudao. But what was the reason then? As Guan watched him leave, continuing on his way, he pondered the matter. Not far away within the crowd, Zhang Xianwang frowned and ultimately sighed, heading in the opposite direction from Heaven's Sect. The afternoon's combat had reached its pinnacle with 2 Nirvana Realm great cultivators clashing, one of whom was from the Supreme Sect. Naturally, both hailed from the Ocean Cultivators. The 2 Nirvana Realm great cultivators employed spells, divine skills, demon pets, formations, and various other arts, comprehensively displaying to the spectators what it meant to be an immortal cultivator. Within the same realm, the higher one's level, the harder it was to slay the opponent, easily leading to a prolonged fierce battle. Guan found it highly entertaining. These individuals' cultivation levels were average, but their variety in battle was impressive. Guan, who could only defeat enemies instantly, couldn't experience this kind of thrill and could only feel envious. Until the night descended. Guan left Mystic Valley alone, flying towards the distance. His furrowed brow and tense demeanor were acted out deliberately. To demonstrate resolve, he sped up his flight. An hour later, Guan felt a surge of mana approaching and immediately prepared himself, yielding to the other's intention. At first glance, he seemed to plummet suddenly, landing in a forest. Once on the ground, he quickly stood up, pretending to be panicked. When he saw Heaven's Sect's figure, he finally calmed down. Heaven's Sect emerged from the darkness, speaking admiringly. You are courageous indeed. It's no wonder you dared to accept the immortal king crown. Though I do not know why it has not devoured you, regardless, you have received the recognition of an immortal path supreme treasure. Do you have a master? Guan shook his head. I don't. Is the immortal king crown the diadem on my head? I just stumbled upon it somewhere. He had already altered his own causality, so even Heaven's Sect would be misled. Certainly, Heaven's Sect had deduced through causality that Guan bought the immortal king crown at a bargain price from a treasure pavilion. At that time, the crown seemed freshly unearthed and antiquated. How could a divine immortal of wondrous dharma see through the trickeries of a Tao void mysterious immortal? Do you wish to learn about the origins of the immortal king crown? Once you know, you will not be able to maintain a life of tranquility, Heaven's Sect said to Guan, his voice soft. Guan replied with a wry smile. Can I go back now? No, once you have come, there is no turning back. Then why do you ask? The way of Heaven's Sect is the heavenly Tao, and the heavenly Tao must comply with the will of the people. Does this count? You came, so it counts. Guan felt that this person was being unreasonable, but since he sensed no hostility from Heaven's Sect, he decided to listen to what was to be said. Tending to plants and occasionally craving some excitement wasn't too bad. He dared to face thrills also because Heaven's Sect posed no threat to him. The immortal king crown was forged by the first immortal king of the great heavenly spirit land, who existed during the distant primordial times, when the heavens and earth first parted. Back then, there was no holy court, no heavenly Tao rules in the outer heaven. Heaven's Sect's voice filled with a mysterious aura, causing Guan to glimpse ancient scenes. The vast earth stretched out, and colossal beasts roamed freely. There were no systems, no sects, no dynasties. He saw the silhouette of the immortal king, blurred yet emanating a terrifying presence that reminded him of Long Zhan. This indicated that the immortal king stood on the same level as Long Zhan. The 9th level of immortal path. When the immortal king declared, I am the immortal king, thunder roared, and the land was stricken by various natural disasters. Thinking too highly of himself, the immortal king sought to challenge the heavenly Tao, striving to unify all creation, to venture into the outer heaven, and in doing so, offended the will of the heavens. He was ultimately afflicted by the curse of the heavenly Tao and, upon his impending death, sealed his own Tao within the immortal king crown. The immortal king crown is also the first ever immortal path supreme treasure in recorded history. At the very least, it is the first within the great heavenly spirit land. Heaven's Sect's tone remained emotionless. Chapter 325 Heavenly Tao Inheritance. The first immortal king, the first immortal path supreme treasure. Guan had felt a power from the immortal king that transcended the epochs, a mighty will that challenged the heavenly Tao. Heaven's Sect continued to watch over Guan, and spoke further. Ever since the fall of the immortal king, the world was submerged by the oceans, ushering in an era of decline. But from destruction comes creation, and even in the most perilous environments, new beings are nurtured. Over the long epochs, many have emulated the immortal king. The title he bestowed upon himself also became a glory pursued by later generations of cultivators, continually producing new immortal kings who challenged the authority of heavens and gradually increased the heavenly restraints imposed on this world. Epochs change, and seas turn into mulberry fields. It wasn't until the birth of the Holy Court that beings finally had the chance to set foot in outer heaven. I inherited the legacy of Heaven's Sect and took on its name. Heaven's Sect can only be transmitted singularly, and I want to take you as my disciple, to make you the next Heaven's Sect. By the end of this statement, the sound of the wind in the forest abruptly stopped, and the flora ceased their swaying. Guan widened his eyes and asked incredulously, Me? Can I really do it? I'm just a mediocre talent. What does talent matter? Heaven's Sect has its own legacy that can help you break free from your shackles. You have been recognized by the immortal king crown. There must be something extraordinary about you, either an ancient treasure body or your soul harboring greater power. The Tao patterns on your forehead are the best proof, Heaven's Sect stated, his eyes blazing as he gazed at Guan. Guan hesitated. But I don't understand what being Heaven's Sect entails. What are your ideals? Heaven's Sect is about complying with the heavenly Tao. What you need to do is to follow the heavenly Tao. As long as you adhere to this, you will constantly surpass your limits and might even achieve immortality. If immortality is attainable, why do you want to pass it on to me? Because I have regrets and no longer wish to comply with the heavenly Tao. These words from Heaven's sect only added to Guan's confusion. Are you trying to trap me, or just deceive me? Seeing through Guan's doubts, Heaven's sect looked up at the bright moon and explained, I have lived for 780,000 years. In my life, every choice made was in compliance with the heavenly Tao. For the heavenly Tao, I have forsaken my family and dear friends. I have attained immortality and earned a revered holy name. But over time, I also grew regretful. I no longer yearn for immortality, but you probably still desire it. After hearing this, Guan's first thought was to pass on the legacy to those close to him. Heaven's sect continued, my time is limited. After this heavenly list conference concludes, I will relinquish the position of Heaven's sect. You have no choice, but you need to spend the remaining time adjusting your Taoist heart. With that, he vanished into the forest. Guan frowned, staying in his spot. Don't tell anyone else, lest you reveal the fate and bring misfortune upon them. Muttering to himself, Guan scoffed internally, but he indeed felt a mysterious and familiar aura from Heaven's sect, similar to the light layer enveloping the great heavenly spirit land. Could the heavenly Tao really exist? Guan pondered a while in his place before finally leaving. In the following days, several great cultivators made their names known at the Heavenly List Conference, with the most dominant being Heaven's sect, who self-proclaimed the title. Besides that, nobody knew much about his origins. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord also performed strongly, but he lacked the aura of being the foremost. Time flew swiftly. 2 months passed rapidly, and the Heavenly List Conference continued. During this time, Supreme Sect was as lively as a festival every day. On this day, sensing something while reading under a tree, Shen Shinzi looked up and saw an old man with white hair approaching from the valley entrance. HM? That presence? Shen Shinzi frowned thoughtfully. Heaven's sect felt his gaze and glanced at him. Their eyes met and in an instant, Shen Shinzi felt an immense terror, instinctively bowing his head. Heaven's sect withdrew his gaze and proceeded forward. His eyes swept Medicine Valley and soon locked onto Yang Jian, who was interacting with a disciple. Yang Jian, sensing something, turned his head and instinctively frowned when he saw Heaven's sect. This newcomer was no ordinary figure. Yang Jian, already at the Void Crossing realm, had sharper senses than others at his level. From the first glance at Heaven's sect, he knew he was no match for the other. He wasn't panicked, for his master was still within Medicine Valley. Heaven's sect approached Yang Jian, with Shen Shinzi watching him closely, debating whether to intervene. Mystic Gang Dominator Body. Have you felt the thickness of your soul? Heaven's sect's first question startled Yang Jian. Yang Jian instinctively looked around. The others can't hear our conversation, nor can they see me, except for that heavenly demon from Bitter Sea Buddha sect, whom I intentionally allowed to see, Heaven's sect stated emotionlessly. The term, heavenly demon, alarmed Shen Shinzi, who immediately bowed his head. Yang Jian, however, was not distracted by the mention of the heavenly demon. Suppressing his nervousness, he asked, What exactly do you want? Heaven's sect raised his right hand, revealing a golden jade stone in his palm, and said, This object is for you. Just crush it, and you will recall past life memories, regaining your true identity. You have reincarnated 100 times. It's rare for someone to help you awaken the Mystic Gang Dominator Body. You might not get such a chance in future reincarnations. Yang Jian instinctively caught the golden jade stone, pressing further. Who are you really? What do you want? We fought side by side before. I was severely injured, and you perished along with your path. I would never harm you. Once you awaken your past memories, I will appear, said Heaven's sect before turning to leave. Yang Jian looked at the golden jade stone in his hand, his mind in turmoil. Past life? Having read Investiture of the Gods and Journey to the West, he naturally believed in reincarnation, but now that it directly affected him, he couldn't help but feel unsettled. He took a deep breath, looked up, and saw Heaven's sect heading towards his master's attic. He wondered if his master had noticed this person's approach. Previously, he believed his master was invincible, but Heaven's sect's methods were beyond his comprehension. Except for him and Shen Shinzi, no one in the valley could see his movements. What kind of divine skill was this? Yang Jian couldn't understand, and his wariness of Heaven's sect piqued. He hesitated whether to warn his master, fearing he might ruin his master's plans if he had already noticed. After considering, he used his divine sense to follow. When his divine sense reached the attic, Guan showed no reaction, which reassured him, and he withdrew his divine sense. Heaven Sect reached the attic. Stepping into the first-floor room, he muttered to himself, "Reincarnation Path Emperor? Great karmic bonds. Untouchable. I didn't expect this place to have so many significant karmic bonds. Could Sword Venerable Fudao be nearby?" He then ascended the stairs. Walking through the door, Heaven Sect appeared before Guan, who was at his desk, and then revealed his true form. His gaze fell on the supreme secret records in Guan's hand. A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. He suddenly regretted choosing Guan. But by now, he had no other options. Ahem, Heaven Sect feigned a cough, causing Guan to instinctively look up, and then he stood up abruptly as though he had seen a ghost. How did you appear?" Guan asked fearfully. Heaven Sect replied irritably, "You are soon to be the next Heaven Sect, destined to wield the heavenly will. Stop reading books that corrupt the mind." Guan closed the supreme secret records explaining, "This book is different." "Enough," Heaven Sect cut him off, his gaze returning to the Immortal King Crown. "You roam around wearing the Immortal King Crown all day, aren't you afraid of trouble? Not everyone is like me, without greed for Immortal Path supreme treasures, especially since the Immortal King Crown is special, being one of the rare treasures not bound by the chief fortune of the Holy Court." "The Holy Court manipulates? What do you mean?" Guan asked, puzzled. Considering that nearly all Immortal Path supreme treasures were presented by the Holy Court to help various congregations better manage the populace, Guan had obtained the 7 Stars Mirror from the 7 Stars Spirit Realm, and the Star Sea congregations also had their own supreme treasure. Yet almost no one attempted to steal their supreme treasures, indicating that some powerful force was balancing the greed of the great powers. Heaven Sect explained, "The vast majority of supreme treasures in the world are dispatched by the Holy Court, aiding the various sects in governing the populace. Of course, some treasures aren't under their control, and your Immortal King Crown is one such example. The Holy Court can trace all supreme treasures linked to chief fortune, which is why they are more wary of those they can't control. If someone discovers your Immortal King Crown, you're in major trouble, and even the chief fortune of Heaven Sect can't protect you." Guan thought, "I have another supreme treasure in my possession, and you haven't recognized it either." Chapter 326. Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court. Heaven Sect lectured Guan at length, telling him how to act in the future and what pitfalls to avoid, as if imparting his last words. Despite thinking to himself, "I, a divine thought true immortal, will not acknowledge you as my master," Guan considered retaining Heaven Sect's legacy since Heaven Sect was determined to abdicate his position and had decided to search for a successor on his behalf. Before leaving, Heaven Sect said, "Though there are many secrets about you that puzzle me, I have no desire to understand them anymore. Your disciple named Yang Jian, let him leave when he wishes to. Do not stop him, for he will bring you great trouble." Guan nodded, planning to dismiss him first. Heaven Sect raised his right hand. A chi sphere formed in his palm and he threw it at Guan. With no time to dodge, Guan could only watch as the chi sphere entered his body, causing him to stiffen. Heaven Sect looked at Guan, a smile appearing as he said, "It's a pity I didn't formally accept you as my disciple. It's better this way, to avoid my karma affecting you." With that, he turned and left, his figure passing directly through the door. Feeling his presence disappear, the color of panic finally vanished from Guan's face. "Accept me as a disciple? Sorry, I am more afraid of getting involved in your karma." Guan touched his chest, extracting the chi sphere. He could feel the powerful force inside, no weaker than Heaven Sect's, and its chi fortune was something he currently couldn't fathom. Precisely because of this, he couldn't merge with the chi sphere. Let's call it Heaven Sect's chi fortune. Guan took out the 7 Stars Mirror and channeled the Heaven Sect's chi fortune into it. When he first obtained the 7 Stars Mirror, Guan had erased all the chi fortune, karma, and related restriction inside it. He treated not only Immortal Path supreme treasures with such thoroughness but also any magic artifact. To avoid any accidents, he checked it again. Once sure there were no issues, he tucked the 7 Stars Mirror into his pocket and then sat down to continue reading. The grand ranking competition was still ongoing. As of today, the combatants were all immortal beings, unlike Liya who relied on Immortal Path supreme treasures from lower realms. Thus each combat was a testament to cultivation levels. When Heaven Sect broke into the top 10, he announced his withdrawal from the competition and then left. his departure destined to leave a lingering question in the grand ranking competition. No matter who won first place, they could not be considered the true victor of the competition in the minds of the people below. Heaven's sect was the most dominant presence in this grand ranking competition. Unequivocally. Gu-en and Yang Jian tacitly did not mention Heaven's sect and continued their cultivation as usual. Gu-en trained Yang Jian, not hoping he would serve him for life. When he saw through the karma of Yang Jian's past life, he was already prepared to let Yang Jian go. He even looked forward to seeing what impact Yang Jian would make on the world after he emerged magnificently. By the end of summer, the grand ranking competition concluded, and Nine-Finger Divine Lord representing the Supreme Sect won the first-place seat. Carefree primordial immortal Zhang Xianwang from the Immortal Spirit Dynasty did not participate. He lingered in the Supreme Sect, searching for Sword Venerable Fudao. Clearly wary of Holy Court, he acted very cautiously and dared not reveal his identity. After the grand ranking competition ended, Zhang Xianwang still did not leave. Until one night in early autumn. Zhang Xianwang was reading in his inn room, with more than a dozen books about Sword Venerable Fudao spread out on the table. A cold breeze stirred the oil lamp on the table. Zhang Xianwang's eyes flickered, instinctively looking to the side. Immediately after, his pupils contracted sharply as he abruptly stood up. He saw a figure shrouded in purple demonic qi, his face's shock quickly turning to joy. The newcomer was Gu-en. His 9 extremes yin-yang body had advanced to the extreme path transforming form, allowing him to change into various forms, and even without transformation, he could avoid karma calculation by using the extreme path transforming form. However, the image of Sword Venerable Fudao was too deeply ingrained, and he had to meet people in this guise. "Why are you looking for me?" Gu-en spoke, his voice hoarse, prompting Zhang Xianwang to imagine a face weathered by the vicissitudes of life. Zhang Xianwang promptly bowed, then introduced himself. He came from the Immortal Dynasty, sent by the master of the Immortal Dynasty, Yang Xian Emperor, to request Sword Venerable Fudao to take action on a matter. He did not immediately mention what it was but instead asked Gu-en's impression of the Holy Court. It upholds the great righteousness of protecting the mortals, yet shows disdain for mortal spirits with its pride. It has its good and bad sides. Are the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court at odds? Gu-en asked nonchalantly. Zhang Xianwang took a deep breath and said, "It's not that we are at odds with the Holy Court, but rather that the Holy Court has always wanted to eliminate us, to make the great heavenly spirit land entirely theirs. The master of Holy Court, Shangtian, comes from outer heaven and established the Holy Court in this land. The top hierarchy of the Holy Court mostly shares a similar origin with him, while the Immortal Dynasty is a gathering of native immortal beings from the great heavenly spirit land, evolving over generations to form the Immortal Dynasty." This was the first Gu-en had heard of such matters. If that's the case, wouldn't I who don't belong to the Immortal Dynasty be deemed an enemy? Gu-en asked. It was important to consider right and wrong based on one's stance. If the stances were different, he didn't understand why the Immortal Dynasty would still seek him out. Zhang Xianwang hurriedly explained, "It's not just the Immortal Dynasty that belongs to native beings of the great heavenly spirit land. All beings below heaven are so. It's just that the current beings only recognize the Holy Court." "So what then? You guys wouldn't want me to go against Holy Court, right?" Gu-en countered. "Senior, you refuse to accept Qi fortune and status, and you conceal your real identity. The only thing you could fear is the Holy Court. If you cooperate with the Immortal Dynasty, we will fulfill any needs you have. However, before that, we hope you can infiltrate Holy Court to rescue someone for us, someone who is not from the Immortal Dynasty but has been beneficial to us," Zhang Xianwang earnestly said. He was about to introduce this person when Gu-en suddenly interrupted. "No need to continue, I refuse. It does not matter who rules the world, nor do I wish to get involved in your grievances. If that's the matter, then please leave. Head have to be full to do the Immortal Dynasty's bidding." Not to mention whether Zhang Xianwang's words were true. Even if they were, he wouldn't agree. Currently, only the great Nether Saint King from Holy Court bore a grudge against him. He had no reason to position himself against Holy Court. Moreover, the Immortal Dynasty clearly felt inferior and thought they couldn't overcome Holy Court. He had no desire to be their pawn. "Senior." Zhang Xianwang still wanted to persuade, but a terrifying force enveloped him, making him fall silent and tremble. This carefree primordial immortal appeared quite embarrassed now. Leave the supreme sect. Do not disturb my secluded cultivation. I do not wish to be an enemy of any force, but if someone forces me, I won't hesitate to visit their Taoist tradition. Before his words fully faded, Guan disappeared from the spot, leaving Zhang Xianwang in the room, his face changing expressions. He originally thought Sword Venerable Fudao was concealing his name because he feared Holy Court. He didn't expect that what Sword Venerable Fudao feared was the entire world. Are there really such ascetic cultivators in the world with such a temperament? Meanwhile, Guan returned to the 8 scenic caves. Had he not been favorably impressed by Zhang Xianwang, Guan wouldn't have met him at all. Had Zhang persisted unreasoningly and kept pushing, Guan wouldn't hesitate to annihilate him. He continued his artifact refining, which had been delayed for several months due to the grand ranking competition. Now, he needed to pick it back up. His goal was to create his own Immortal Path Supreme Treasure when he reached the 9th level of Immortal. What kind of Immortal Path Supreme Treasure would be worthy of him? He constantly pondered this question. As dawn broke, Guan felt Zhang Xianwang's presence departing, bringing a smile to his face. He hoped Zhang Xianwang could convey the signal that Guan had released to the Immortal Dynasty. He didn't want further conflicts with the Immortal Dynasty. Standing up, he tidied up before leaving the 8 scenic caves. After the grand ranking competition ended, new disciple numbers in the Supreme Sect surged, even attracting high cultivation level cultivators to join. The Supreme Sect once again began expanding the sect. It recruited many servant disciples to labor, offering generous compensation. Guan's Third Medicine Valley remained unaffected because he offered even higher treatment to the servant disciples. 10 years passed, and the number of disciples in Third Medicine Valley broke 2,000. This year, the Supreme Sect agreed to expand Third Medicine Valley. Guan stood on a mountaintop, watching his busy disciples, his face filled with a smile. The expansion of Medicine Valley helped increase his lifespan income. Naturally, his mood was excellent. A figure approached from behind him. It was Yang Jian. Yang Jian had grown more composed and his brow bore a vigorous look. "Master." Yang Jian approached Guan and respectfully bowed. Guan did not turn around but gazed into the distance, asking, "Have you decided?" Taking a deep breath, Yang Jian replied, "I have decided. I carry too much karma. First it was Impermanence Tian, and now Heaven Sect. As my cultivation level continues to rise, the problems will only increase in the future. I don't want to cause trouble for you and Medicine Valley. Also, I wish to venture out alone to cultivate my heart and seek Tao." Guan turned around, looked at him and softly laughed. "You truly have grown up. Go then, it's time for you to be on your own." Hearing Guan consenting, Yang Jian sighed with relief, his face showing happiness as he solemnly nodded. "Leave today, and don't say goodbye to anyone else." Guan waved his hand. Stunned, Yang Jian could only nod. As he turned to leave, he couldn't help but ask, "Master, who exactly is my senior brother?" "You've already chosen another path. Don't ask further. After leaving Third Medicine Valley, do not mention my name or reveal my existence, or else." Guan's back faced Yang Jian as he spoke in a calm tone. He didn't complete his sentence, but he believed Yang Jian understood. Yang Jian took a deep breath, knelt again, and bowed deeply to Guan. Then, Yang Jian left. Guan watched the sky, his gaze profound. He was not afraid of Yang Jian exposing him. Currently, as Sword Venerable, he displayed the cultivation level of Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma. Who could guess his cultivation had reached Divine Thought True Immortal? Moreover, Yang Jian himself had a significant background. It was better that he left to follow his own path. "The child has grown up and ultimately wants to soar high," Guan sighed, then shook his head with a wry smile, turning to walk down the mountain. When he reached the base, he saw an Xian chasing the white spirit rat. The corners of his mouth curved upwards. At least this disciple was still here. Now that Yang Jian had left, it was time to focus on training an Xian. Although Nzin's talents were ordinary, if he diligently cultivated, he might surpass Hao and Yang Jian, for Guan himself was growing at a much faster rate. Chapter 327. Nzin's surprise. Late at night, an Xian knocked on Guan's room door, and with a wave of his sleeve, the door opened directly. An Xian stepped inside and closed the door behind her. She approached Guan's desk, curiously looking at her master. Guan seldom called for her at this time alone, and she couldn't help but be curious. Guan caught the disrupted cultivation aura from downstairs and spoke. Yang Jian has left to gain experience. How about I teach you cultivation techniques myself from now on? An Exian was taken aback and asked, haven't you always been teaching me? Guan chuckled. Previously, I only assisted you in energy absorption, but now I will truly help you become stronger. After hearing this, an Exian smiled brightly. If Master is willing to teach, naturally I have no objections, as long as you don't despise me for my lack of insight. Don't worry. Guan offered reassurance, then began to talk about affairs within Medicine Valley. The cultivation aura downstairs returned to normal and remained undisturbed throughout. After chit-chatting for a while, Guan let an Exian leave. Then, he left the third Medicine Valley, heading towards Mystic Valley. Arriving in Mystic Valley, he stepped into the Nianchu cave, preparing to spend the night with Tian Yaoer and her 3 demons. In a bright and magnificent hall, rows of figures stood, forming 4 long lines, neat and orderly, with the 2 middle rows spaced wide apart to create a broad aisle. A rainbow light flew into the hall, swiftly condensing into the form of Zhang Xianwang. Zhang Xianwang quickly strode forward, reaching the steps, where he bowed in greeting and looked up to see a towering figure seated on a golden throne, the back of which was made of overlapping golden weapons, like an unfurled fan. The towering figure donned a red dragon robe and a dragon crown with hanging beads, surrounded by whirling blood-colored dragon chi, as if encircled by dragons. His visage was majestic, eyes seemingly containing a sea of stars, piercing and profound. This person was none other than the ruler of the immortal dynasty, the Yangxian Emperor. After Zhang Xianwang recounted his mission's details, the hall erupted with discussion among the immortal spirits. This sword venerable Fudao dares to show no respect to us, arrogant. He indeed has that right after all. He dared to refuse the divine position offered by the Holy Court. It seems he is one of those ascetics who wishes to stay away from conflicts. The world is complex, and one can't simply hide whenever they wish. The Holy Court will certainly be suspicious of him. Now that the Holy Minister dominates the court, we need not lift a finger. He alone can provoke Sword Venerable Fudao into action, considering that the great Nether Saint King is his lackey. Once Zhang Xianwang concluded his report, the discussions in the hall turned raucous. Ignoring the surrounding noise, Zhang Xianwang's gaze was fixed on the Yangxian Emperor, awaiting his judgment. The Yangxian Emperor slowly asked, "From what you've seen, is what he spoke the truth?" Silence fell over the hall upon his words. Hesitating for a moment, Zhang Xianwang replied, "Based on what I know of the Supreme Sect, his actions are indeed consistent with his character. He only strikes to defend against external threats to the Supreme Sect, never due to personal vendettas. At least, no one knows of any, and even the Hall of Elders seems unaware of Sword Venerable Fudao's true identity." The Yangxian Emperor listened and narrowed his eyes. No one dared interrupt his contemplation. After a while, the Yangxian Emperor spoke. "In that case, let's not disturb him any further." "Yes," Zhang Xianwang replied, relieved. Although the actual realm of Sword Venerable Fudao was unclear, the mere fact that he could effortlessly crush the Great Cold Demon Sect meant he was at least at the divine immortal of Wondrous Dharma realm. If his realm exceeded that, he would be even more dangerous to provoke. Unable to ally, it was also needless to make an enemy. Zhang Xianwang then added, "During this mission, I also encountered someone from Heaven's Sect, who went to the Supreme Sect looking for someone. It's likely that the reincarnation of the great Nether Saint King is hidden within the Supreme Sect." "Heaven's Sect? Seems like the Holy Court is in for more trouble," commented the Yangxian Emperor, his tone playful. Zhang Xianwang shared this sentiment. He asked, "If trouble does break out, do we need to intervene?" The Yangxian Emperor snorted. "Intervene in what?" With the arrogant nature of Heaven's Sect and the great Nether Saint King, they didn't need our help in the past. Naturally, we should not offer it now. They underestimated Shengshan's benevolence. Without Shangtian, the Holy Court would only become the greatest terror in the world. Zhang Xianwang fell silent, reflecting on the majesty of Heaven's Sect and sighed. The other immortal spirits in the hall began reminiscing about the past, and regarding the fortunes of Heaven's Sect and the great Nether Saint King, they were mostly schadenfreude. The autumn wind blew through the woods as the blood prison great saint lay on the ground, pondering deeply as he watched an Exian practice. Guan sat nearby, reading a book, occasionally shifting his position. The blood prison great saint turned to Guan and asked, Master, she has been meditating for 5 ancient hours. Does she have a talent that I am unable to see through? Back then, he could not see through Yang Jian, and now, faced with Nzin's transformation, he began to doubt himself. As Guan turned the page, he responded, There aren't so many extraordinary geniuses in the world. I merely wanted her to achieve path enlightenment. The blood prison great saint's eyes widened, shocked. He had not given it much thought when Guan asked Wei Jian to seek path enlightenment, as Wei Jian already had remarkable achievement in the sword Dao. But an Xian was different. She was just an inexperienced girl, lacking the demeanor and potential of a powerful being. Could someone so ordinary really be transformed? The blood prison great saint suddenly felt that Yang Jian's current fate was perhaps truly shaped by his master's defiance of the heavens. His heart ignited with excitement. How could one not achieve greatness following such an entity? If Yang Jian comes back and sees an Xian surpassing him, that would be interesting. The blood prison great saint entertained this thought, suddenly feeling that Guan might actually have nurtured an Xian intensively for this very reason. Poor Yang Jian. Nevertheless, it proved that the blood prison great saint's choice was correct, and his mood became even more joyful. Unbeknownst to Guan, the blood prison great saint had conjured up so much in his mind. While he appeared to be reading, he was actually watching over Yang Jian as he ventured to the sea. He saw Heaven's sect tracking Yang Jian, and apart from them, no one else was watching him, which meant that the great Nether Saint King had not yet realized Yang Jian's identity. This indicated that no trouble would come his way for the time being. After a while, Guan's divine sense traveled to outer heaven, where a carefree primordial immortal was engaged in combat, quite a rare sight. The adversaries were clearly mortal enemies, striking fiercely, shaking the void. Guan sensed many great cultivators secretly watching the battle, with various divine senses weaving through each other, making him muse that great heaven and earth was indeed full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. As evening approached, Guan finally withdrew the divine sense that had been focused on an Xian, bringing her back to awareness. An Xian slowly opened her eyes to find 2 new cultivation techniques in her mind. Heaven and earth primordial skill and all things form and energy art. Though these techniques were already enhanced by Guan, they were enough for an Xian to ponder for a lifetime. Heaven and earth primordial skill was the foundation of her cultivation, while all things form and energy art could conceal her cultivation level, both complementing the primordial reincarnation skill. Once she regained her composure, a look of shock flashed across her face. So profound. Instinctively, an Xian looked towards Guan, her eyes filled with surprise, confusion, unease and joy. She cautiously asked, Master, was it because of you last time too? Guan, with a book in hand, nodded lightly. How does it feel? Good, but... An Xian stopped mid-sentence, hesitant to ask a lingering question, afraid of offending Guan. How could Master be so powerful? Could Master be an immortal? Guan calmly said, From now on, I will teach you cultivation in private, and you mustn't tell anyone. For some reason, upon hearing these words, Nzin's heart quivered. It sounded so familiar. A figure from deep within her memory emerged, coincidentally overlapping with Guan at this moment. Could it be? Impossible. Wasn't Master just a little over 300 years old? How could he be so formidable? Guan put away his book, looking at an Xian. The identity of Supreme Sex Guan is indeed my disguise. You guessed it right. I am him. From the very beginning, you've only had me as your master. With these words, an Xian immediately stood up, her eyes welling up and her body trembling uncontrollably. Master! Overwhelmed by emotions, an Xian burst into Guan's arms and began to sob uncontrollably. Guan, helpless, said, Why are you crying? You're making it seem like we haven't seen each other in ages, and I haven't mistreated you these years, have I? An Xian buried her head in his chest, sobbing. I haven't been mistreated. It's just, I never expected that, after all these years, what I've wanted most is actually happening. I'm so foolish. How could there be 2 people in this world who are so good to me? Master, I've missed you so much. The blood prison great saint was utterly confused. Weren't these 2 just master and disciple? Why the emotional reunion? Guan patted Nzin's back. Let go of your master, you're grown up now. Don't let others see this. An Xian released Guan and then knelt on the ground to wipe her tears, her face radiating with a smile. So, Master, you tricked us. If my senior brother knew you were our master, he would probably be devastated. Wait, does that mean you knew him because you were looking out for him back then? An Exian asked wide-eyed, her shift from formality to familiarity not out of disrespect, but because the master who saved her and led her on the immortal cultivation path was like a father to her. In front of her father, she had no apprehensions. Guan said, "You could say that. However, our relationship should stay as it appears on the surface, and don't tell your senior brother." An Exian immediately nodded, her eyes still red, but now she was excited. Suddenly, she glanced at the Blood Prison Great Saint, hesitated, and said, "Master, but he hurt us." The Blood Prison Great Saint bristled. "What do you mean, behind my back? I am the Master's most trusted mount, even closer than you disciples." Guan smiled. "Don't underestimate him. Bull Demon King. Feel free to share your story with her." With that, the Blood Prison Great Saint stood tall, filled with pride, and began to reveal his true identity. Ascender. Mahayana Realm. Just those two aspects were enough to shock an Exian. Her mouth agape, and as for the long list of titles that followed, she had already tuned out. She turned back to Guan and asked, "Master, does that mean Yang Jian is really my junior brother? What is his cultivation level now?" Chapter 328. Master, what realm are you exactly? He has already reached the void-crossing realm in terms of cultivation level, Guan replied offhandedly, as if he was talking about a trivial matter of no importance. An Exian was shocked once again, her mouth agape and hands involuntarily covering her face, seemingly unable to accept this reality. She and Hao had started cultivating on the same day and knew all too well how extraordinary Hao's pace of cultivation was. Precisely because of this, she was very clear that Yang Jian's progress was no less sensational than Hao's. She had watched Yang Jian enter the valley, watched him grow up. In the beginning, how mediocre Yang Jian had been, yet he had grown so rapidly right under her nose. It was simply outrageous. Suddenly, an Exian didn't know what to say. Guan looked at her and smiled. "Keep cultivating well, strive to surpass those who came before you." An Exian hesitated, "But my talent?" After all, she had trained under Guan and, seeing the vast gap between her and Hao, her confidence had long since been worn away. What was in the past was in the past. Had I not let you settle in, how could you have today's temperament? Do you think your senior brother could have had it all smooth sailing? I've intervened for him countless times over the years. He always loves to cause me trouble, Guan huffed. An Exian was astonished. The master had helped the senior brother before? Why hadn't the senior brother mentioned it? Damn it, he actually kept it hidden from me. An Exian gritted her teeth. She looked at Guan and asked, "Then, do I have a chance to surpass my senior brother?" Guan spoke earnestly. "That depends on how much determination you're willing to put forth. No one is predestined to be stronger than another." These words completely ignited Xin's aspirations, as if flames were blazing in her eyes. Blood Prison Great Saint was somewhat displeased. "I haven't finished bragging yet." After returning to Third Medicine Valley, an Exian was in an exceptionally good mood, wandering around and greeting everyone she saw. For this senior disciple of the Medicine Valley, all the disciples held great respect. Passing by, Chuanyue asked with a cheerful smile, "Senior sister, why are you so happy?" An Exian replied with a smile, "Because the moonlight is beautiful tonight." Chuanyue looked puzzled, but an Exian did not explain, instead brushing past him. On the other side, in a loft, Guan picked up Green Hero Travelogue and had only been reading for a short while when Ji Xiaoyu came up the stairs and entered the room. "Where did you two go during the day?" Ji Xiaoyu stared at Guan and asked. Guan answered, "We went out for cultivation." "Really? What can you teach her?" "Well, I managed to teach Yang Jian, didn't I? Just wait. Maybe he'll make a name for himself and shake the world someday." Ji Xiaoyu raised an eyebrow. After a moment of silence, she asked, "You wouldn't happen to know Sword Venerable Fudao, would you?" Gu An's face changed dramatically, and he exclaimed with shock, "How did you know?" "Really? Truth be told, I am actually a disciple of Sword Venerable Fudao." "Heh. What, you don't believe me? Okay then, I am Sword Venerable Fudao." Ji Xiaoyu rolled her eyes at Guan and said, You're always talking nonsense. Every time I ask about your secrets, you always dodge the question, yet I've shared everything with you. At this point, her tone carried a hint of melancholy. Guan replied helplessly, My dear sister, I do want to know. Every time you just tell me outright, I listen with trepidation, fearing that your enemy from a former life will come knocking at our door. It's not death I fear, but if the enemy tortures me severely, even if I confess, they might not believe me. As he spoke, Guan rambled on, causing Ji Xiaoyu to show a look of remorse. From Gu An's perspective, it indeed seemed like a lot of pressure. After Guan finished speaking, Ji Xiaoyu asked, Should I stop telling you from now on? Really? False. I'm still going to tell you. You only live once. I speak to you not because I want to talk about these things. Having said that, Ji Xiaoyu turned and left, leaving behind her solitary silhouette. Guan laughed to himself. This girl's nature was indeed amusing. Then, he picked up the Green Hero travelogue from the table and continued reading. Xian Tianyi hadn't published a new book recently, which had allowed some laziness to set in, causing Guan some dissatisfaction. Find a moment to tap him on the shoulder? Forget it, that's beneath my dignity. Having Shen Zhen come back to the Jianghu wouldn't be bad either. She has the talent to surpass Xian Tianyi. High up under the blue sky, above the white clouds, Guan rode the blood prison great saint with an Exian standing beside him. An Exian, dressed all in white and wearing a white jade mask, was at that moment caressing her mask. Master, where are we going? An Exian turned her head and asked, feeling a powerful force whisking her away, immense and vast. To another branch of your master's sect, Guan replied. Upon hearing this, an Exian immediately became excited and asked, Master, what realm are you really in? Even Senior Nine Fingers and the others can't see through your disguise. I am slightly higher in cultivation level than the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, Wu Xing, and Shen Xinzi, Guan answered ambiguously. Seeing that he was unwilling to reveal more, an Exian didn't press the matter and started to get curious about their destination. A gust of sea breeze blew from the front, prompting an Exian to turn her head. Immediately, her complexion changed drastically. One by one, towering and majestic peaks entered her vision, shocking her very eyes. Guan glanced at her, feeling a sense of emotion. Since they had recognized each other, an Exian seemed to have become a different person, lively as if returning to her youthful days. This indicated that she truly saw Guan as family. With parents present, a child can afford to be willful. Without parents to accompany, one must learn to behave properly. An Exian was like this, which made Guan quite happy. After all, he had watched an Exian grow up, and she had been with him for so many years. In his heart, wasn't an Exian like a daughter? Look at you, acting like you've never seen anything. This is Mortal World Peak, and the master here is the Peak Master of Ding Tian Peak. Blood Prison Great Saint said proudly, as if he himself were the Peak Master of Ding Tian Peak. An Exian exclaimed in astonishment, Ding Tian Peak? I've heard of it. Senior Lu came to attend the Millennial Peak Conference before. So that's how it is, no wonder. Master, if Senior Lu knew it was you taking care of her in secret, with her affection for you, she would probably wish to pledge herself to you right there and then. Gu An's handsome face turned red, and he fake coughed, saying, What nonsense are you spouting? How could a girl speak such words? Your master would never become Taoist friends with her. Just so, she isn't worthy? Blood Prison Great Saint chimed in, feeling annoyed with Lu Lingjun, also an ascender, ever since she had called him a stupid cow. An Exian giggled behind her hand and said, I finally understand why the master refuses to accept those female companions. Indeed, there's no need. They would only drag you down. She admired Guan greatly. The master truly gave without expecting anything in return. What woman could resist his charisma? And who would have thought that Sword Venerable Fudao would be a valley master at the Supreme Sect? Such a waste of talent. The master really has patience. An Exian silently vowed to herself to become a great cultivator like her master. Hidden amidst the mortal coil, watching over the swirling winds of the world with a smile. If she could truly surpass her senior brother and junior brothers, she would also conceal her cultivation level, watching the two of them vie against each other with a smile. Just by thinking about it, an Exian felt a surge of excitement. At that moment, a vast aura descended, dispersing the sea of clouds and fluttering in Zin's long hair and gown. She looked up, and her eyes instinctively widened. There before her was a green mountain reflection stretching across the sky, larger than all the massive peaks in front of them. Guan remained expressionless. His reason for coming today was for this very item. It was an Immortal Path supreme treasure belonging to Mortal World Peak. Chapter 329. Fu Shinxiu, Qingtian Peak. When the azure mountain shadows hung suspended in the sky, disciples from various peaks flew out, looking up at this magnificent scene. Guan did not stop, taking Blood Prison Great Saint and an Xian toward Dingtian Peak. An Xian, feeling the aura of the mountains and cultivators along the way, was secretly astonished, realizing that Mortal World Peak truly was unfathomable, seeing that Senior Lu hadn't spoken falsely. The oppressive force of the azure mountain shadows lingered for a long time, enveloping the entire domain of Mortal World Peak, prompting discussions among the disciples from all peaks. Upon reaching Dingtian Peak, Guan flew toward the mountaintop. Only then did an Xian truly feel the immense size and height of these mountains. Thinking that such a vast mountain belonged to her master, Anzin's gaze toward Guan was filled with admiration. Soon, they arrived at the top of the mountain, and as soon as they landed, Zhu Xinglan, the leading disciple of Dingtian Peak, appeared and came forward to greet Guan with a salute. "What's the situation?" Guan asked. Zhu Xinglan replied, "Its main peak's Fu Shinxiu subduing an Immortal Path supreme treasure. He is the future master of the main peak and the disciple with the strongest talent in 1,000,000 years in Mortal World Peak." There was a complex tone in his voice when he mentioned Fu Shinxiu. Guan looked up at the azure mountain shadow in the sky and laughed. "That's quite a commotion. For such a carefree primordial immortal to subdue an Immortal Path supreme treasure, it seemed to be quite strenuous. It seemed that this Immortal Path supreme treasure was somewhat special." Zhu Xinglan answered, "This Immortal Path supreme treasure was found beyond outer heaven by the Peak Master. Without the suppression of Qi fortune from the Holy Court, truly subduing its immortal spirit would raise quite a ruckus, and there have been those who failed before." Guan nodded and then asked about Dingtian Peak's recent situation, learning that there was nothing requiring his intervention. Only then did Guan start walking toward the medicine garden. An Xian and Blood Prison Great Saint followed behind him, with Zhu Xinglan accompanying them, yet his gaze occasionally shifted toward the sky, admiring the vast azure mountain shadow. Who wouldn't want to possess an Immortal Path supreme treasure? It's just that their numbers were limited, and it wasn't something one could have just by wishing for it. While picking medicinal herbs, Guan introduced them to an Xian. The majority of the medicinal herbs here were unheard of by an Xian, so she listened intently and wasn't distracted by the phenomenon in the sky. Zhu Xinglan was inwardly curious about the origins of this girl, feeling that their master treated her differently compared to others. Anzin's mask, crafted by Guan, was inscrutable for Zhu Xinglan, who was at the 9th layer of Wandering Immortal Realm, and he didn't dare probe with his divine sense. An hour later, the vast oppressive force enveloping Mortal World Peak began to dissolve, and the azure mountain shadow in the sky remained, even becoming more detailed, revealing trees that swayed with the wind, as if they were truly real. "You can go on with your duties. There's no need to follow us." Guan, just stepping out from a section of the medicine garden, turned his head and spoke to Zhu Xinglan, who immediately saluted and then disappeared into thin air. Attracted by the sudden disappearance, an Xian looked at Guan and asked, "Master, what's his cultivation level?" Guan casually replied, "Wandering Immortal Realm, 9 layers." Anzin's pupils, hidden beneath the mask, involuntarily widened. She had heard of Wandering Immortals. The 9-finger Divine Lord, who took first place in the Heavenly Ranking Tournament, was a Wandering Immortal. To reach the 9th layer of Wandering Immortal Realm, didn't that mean the person just now might be even stronger than the 9-finger Divine Lord? Feeling the pressure, an Xian thought of the multitude of disciples at Dingtian Peak, each seemingly an immortal, commanding such formidable power. How could she not feel the pressure, when her master was training her with such focus? At the very least, she couldn't disappoint her master. Master and disciple walked and chatted along the mountain path, with Blood Prison Great Saint trailing behind. As the sea breeze blew and they looked out over the entire world, they seemed so insignificant. The azure mountain shadow in the sky began to scatter, and not long after, the sky returned to its original state, resplendently blue. "Master, if you compared that Immortal Path supreme treasure to Martial Uncle Li Ya's divine exotic city, which would be stronger?" An Xian couldn't help but ask. The strength of Divine Exotic City left a deep impression on her when Leah participated in the Heavenly Ranking Tournament. The strength of an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure is related to the user's cultivation level. Leah is not yet able to fully unleash Divine Exotic City's power, Guan answered. The mightiest feature of an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure is its eternal indestructibility. Currently, there are many Immortal Path Supreme Treasures in the world, all passed down from generation to generation, each symbolizing the lifetime of a 9 heavens of Immortal Path being. After hearing this, an Xin became even more curious about Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Guan brought her here today to broaden her horizons, to understand the world structure, and to comprehend what an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure is. What's that? Blood Prison Great Saint suddenly spoke up, and an Xin turned her head to look, seeing a streak of azure light racing from the distant horizon of the sea, stirring up huge waves. A smile appeared on Guan's face. He thought to himself, as expected. The immortal spirit of that Immortal Path Supreme Treasure was not simple, which was also the reason Guan came to watch the excitement today. An Immortal Path Supreme Treasure from beyond outer heaven implied there was a scheme behind it. That treasure heading straight for Dingtian Peak was probably related to the demon fetus within. As the azure light drew closer, an Xin and Blood Prison Great Saint's expressions drastically changed, a feeling of indescribable panic born in their hearts. This panic emerged but vanished in an instant because Guan stepped forward. An Xin and Blood Prison Great Saint subconsciously looked toward Guan. Guan raised his hand to grasp, then clenched his fist, and the distant azure light immediately disappeared. An Xin and Blood Prison Great Saint turned to look but could no longer see the azure light. It was as if the previous sight was just an illusion. Both looked toward Guan's outstretched hand. Unfortunately, Guan's fist remained closed, shielding from their view whatever lay within his palm. A figure descended from the sky and landed at the edge of a cliff, maintaining a distance of 10 steps from Guan. He frowned as he looked at Guan. Fuxinxiu, Carefree Primordial Immortal Realm, 5 layers 16848775000/250000/250000. Seeing the other's lifespan, Guan felt he indeed deserved the reputation of the #1 talent of Mortal World Peak. In the future, he might even surpass the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. Fuxinxiu asked, "Could it be Senior Meng Lang?" "Meng Lang?" And Zin's gaze turned curious. Guan, on the other hand, laughed and said, "This treasure headed straight for my Dingtian Peak. Could it be considered fated for me?" Fu Shengxia's face drastically changed. After all his troubles, was the treasure taken by someone else? Although he did not attend the Millennium Summit, how could Fu Shengxia not know that a great cultivator had been added to Mortal World Peak? One capable of eradicating the Elder of Mo Hen. Such a great power was definitely beyond his contend. Moreover, the fact that the other party could easily seize the treasure demonstrated a vast gap between them. For a moment, Fu Shengxia was unsure what to do. His master, Taoist Lord Yongnian, had instructed him to try his best to recruit Meng Lang. That was an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Furthermore, one with intact restrictions, uncontrolled by the Holy Court, an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. "Senior." Fu Shengxia gritted his teeth, wanting to test Guan's attitude. Guan suddenly opened his hand, revealing a tiny azure mountain that glistened faintly with light within his palm. Upon seeing the mountain, Fu Shengxia's gaze was fixed and could not be moved. An Xin and Blood Prison Great Saint, although unclear about the newcomer's realm, could tell that his nature and temperament were extraordinary. Could the little azure mountain in their master's hand be the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure? He could seize an Immortal Path Supreme Treasure with a mere wave of his hand? And Zin's heart filled with admiration. "If I let go, are you sure you can catch it?" Guan asked with a chuckle. Fu Shengxia hurriedly replied, "I will do my utmost." Immediately, Guan threw the tiny azure mountain into the distance, casually launching it 1,000,000 miles away. Fu Shengxia appeared out of thin air beside the little mountain, his mana swirling around his hand as he reached out to grasp it. Boom! A terrifying momentum suddenly exploded, tossing Fu Shengxia away, and his face grew extremely unsightly. The little mountain turned into an azure beam, once again streaking toward Dingtian Peak. As Fu Shengxia turned around, he saw that the light had vanished. He flew swiftly toward Dingtian Peak, landing again on the edge of the cliff with a complex expression as he looked at Guan. The little mountain once again floated above Guan's palm. That moment, several figures appeared out of nowhere in the air behind Fu Shenxiu, all of whom were the authorities of Mortal World Peak. Even the master of the main peak, Taoist Lord Yongnian, had come. Bai Zia's gaze fell on the little mountain in Guan's hand and then shifted to Fu Shenxiu, revealing a mocking expression. Guan turned to Taoist Lord Yongnian and laughed. Peak Master, this treasure kept smashing into my Dingtian Peak. I had no choice but to claim it. Taoist Lord Yongnian seemed to realize something, a hint of understanding crossing his eyes, and then he laughed. This is Qingtian Peak, sought by one of my juniors in outer heaven. If Taoist friend likes it, I am willing to bestow it upon Taoist friend. Upon hearing this, Fu Shenxiu immediately became anxious and looked at Taoist Lord Yongnian, saying, Master. Well then, I will find you another Immortal Path Supreme treasure in the future. You have no fate with this one. It's not reasonable to blame others, Taoist Lord Yongnian said with finality. Although he was only one minor realm higher than Fu Shenxiu was raised by him, so facing his decision, Fu Shenxiu had no choice but to give up. He took a deep breath, gave Guan a salute, and then turned and left. The other peak masters looked at each other in dismay, each harboring their own thoughts. Taoist Lord Yongnian, looking back at Guan, said, The treasure indeed has a destiny with Dingtian Peak. I hope Taoist friend can protect Dingtian Peak well. Guan nodded and said, If Mortal World Peak needs me, I will also take action. Taoist Lord Yongnian's face revealed a smile, and then he took his leave. The other peak masters successively saluted and dispersed. Guan felt a hint of regret. Bai Zia didn't seek him out for a chat. Their relationship seemed to have grown distant. After everyone left, an Xian couldn't help but ask, Just like that, you obtained an Immortal Path Supreme treasure. It was her first time seeing her master so assertive. And of course, Sword Venerable Fudao had always been domineering in his actions. Guan was just gentle toward cultivators of lower realms. Blood Prison Great Saint stared intently at Qingtian Peak in Guan's hand, suddenly feeling that he too might one day possess such a treasure. As long as he performed well. Guan proceeded to walk toward the top of the mountain, while he used his divine thought to probe Qingtian Peak in his hand. Qingtian Peak had already fostered an immortal spirit, apparently alive for many years, far more powerful than divine exotic immortal spirit. After all, it was able to break free from the suppression of a carefree primordial immortal. Soon, his divine thought captured a heavenly demon, hidden within the walls of a dilapidated temple within Qingtian Peak, extremely concealed and probably difficult to detect even for the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. Practice diligently. Once you are strong enough, I will give this treasure for you to use, Guan said to an Xian beside him, who was full of curiosity, smiling gently. Chapter 330. Awakening, Really. When an Xian heard Guan's words, she was instantly excited, and the eyes of the Blood Prison Great Saint also turned fiery. Indeed, the master would not be stingy with the treasures of the immortal path. After returning to the mountaintop, Guan had an Xian start cultivating while he went back to the house alone. Sitting on his bed, Guan's gaze fell on Qingtian Peak. He first used his divine thought to erase any marks and restrictions within Qingtian Peak that made him wary. The immortal spirit of Qingtian Peak was very submissive and did not resist Guan. Instead, it was quite jubilant. After taking safety precautions, Guan began to make Qingtian Peak recognize him as its master. With the compliance of the Qingtian immortal spirit, it took Guan less than an hour to refine the restrictions of Qingtian Peak and take control of the soul of the Qingtian immortal spirit, making it completely serve him. With the Qingtian immortal spirit in hand, this would be the combat power of a carefree primordial immortal. Moreover, Guan felt that the power contained in Qingtian Peak was greater than the 7 stars mirror, the immortal king crown, and the divine exotic city. The immortal king crown and divine exotic city had been damaged and needed a long time to recover. The 7 stars mirror hadn't suffered much damage but was slightly weaker than Qingtian Peak, however, the difference was limited. After all this, the corners of Guan's mouth curved upward. Next, it was like capturing a turtle in a jar. Forget it. Let me leave him hanging for a while. After all, he can't escape or pass any messages outside. He pretended not to know that a heavenly demon was hidden inside Qingtian Peak, and the Qingtian immortal spirit was completely unaware. During the process of making Qingtian Peak his own, Guan peeked into the memory of the Qingtian immortal spirit. It spent most of its time either asleep or sealed by a strong force, unaware of the filth inside it. Although unaware of the filth inside, the Qing Tian immortal spirit was influenced by it. It inexplicably felt something attracting it at Ding Tian Peak, thus it crashed towards Ding Tian Peak. If Guan had not intervened, it planned to directly smash Ding Tian Peak to force the alluring thing to reveal itself. From this perspective, the identity of the demon fetus below is not simple. Guan thought silently. He pondered whether or not to move the demon fetus elsewhere, but where could he move it to? Moving it, if awakened prematurely, wouldn't that accelerate the catastrophe? No matter, let it stay here. As for whether another heavenly demon will come later, he didn't care. He would destroy any heavenly demon with lesser cultivation than his. As for those with higher cultivation than his, if they could infiltrate the great heavenly spirit land, wouldn't the holy court have been penetrated long ago? Guan shrank Qing Tian Peak into an accessory and hung it on his belt. His ultimate elusive body was evolved from the practice of the demon shadow divine skill. Its main use now was to block all causality deduction, which also protected Qing Tian Peak when it was attached to his body, making it indeducible. It wasn't necessary to activate the ultimate elusive body to block causality deduction. After mastering it, he could block it permanently. In such a case, releasing some causality on the surface could easily misguide others' deductions. The ultimate elusive body also had combat capabilities, allowing his physical soul to become elusive, dodging spells and divine skills, providing infinite uses in battle. Guan stood up, stretched lazily, and loosened his body. Heavenly demons. The Holy Court. It's really hard to achieve true peace in this world. Guan reflected internally, yet he faced no pressure. There's still much time ahead. Take it slow. The conflicts of the moment mean little. Who laughs last is what truly matters. As the seasons changed, a new year arrived. Just after the new year, Guan was in the forest instructing an Xin on qi absorption cultivation. The stepping path of Age's step was too profound and enigmatic. Even with Guan's personal guidance, an Xin still found it difficult to master. The current goal for an Xin was to discover the patterns of the stepping path of Age's step. An Xin moved swiftly, appearing 5 steps away in an instant before stumbling and falling to the ground. She sat on the ground, feeling dizzy and shaky, her eyes closed and mouth slightly open, which made Guan want to laugh. He didn't help an Xin regain her composure. This was a necessary path for her. She stayed in that spot for nearly half an hour before fully regaining her senses. Turning to Guan, she gave a bitter smile and said, "Master, this technique is incredibly profound. Do I really need to learn it?" Guan, holding the 7 stars mirror like a fan, chuckled and said, "You must learn it. Just absorbing qi is not enough, and besides, cultivating divine skills will enhance your understanding too." An Xin made a mournful face but didn't give up. Instead, she stood up again, ready to continue practicing the stepping path of Age's step. The thought of the previous dizzy sensation made an Xin want to vomit. She raised her hands, patted her face, and tried not to think about the discomfort. At that moment, she turned her head and saw a golden glow in the sky outside the forest, rapidly stretching out and magnificent like the sunset. Guan also looked up, his expression calm. Is it finally coming? Meanwhile, overseas on an island, Yang Jian and Heaven Sect stood side by side. Yang Jian gazed at his right hand, having just crushed a golden jade stone given by Heaven Sect, with his palm covered by a golden sphere and tiny golden stars scattering into the air. He appeared expressionless, yet he was extremely nervous inside. Merging with his past memories, was he still himself? Heaven Sect looked at him and comfortingly said, "Don't worry, this process won't be painful. I've already set up formations, and no one will disturb you." Yang Jian looked up at the sky where the golden glow covered the sky. So beautiful. But this phenomenon... Yang Jian hesitated. Heaven Sect stroked his beard and said, "Don't worry, this phenomenon covers a vast area, and you don't have to worry." Yang Jian took a deep breath and refocused on his palm. Then, the golden stars rising from his palm began to fly toward his face, eventually entering his eyes. The wind picked up on the island as the world's spiritual energy surged towards Yang Jian. The golden light in his palm brightened, illuminating his face while his eyes flickered with different scenes. Seeing this, Heaven Sect smiled, slowly backing away to give Yang Jian space. Elsewhere. Inside Supreme Sect, Guan could see the heaven and earth rules enveloping Yang Jian, with yin yang rules being the most intense. He couldn't understand the process, but he felt that Yang Jian wouldn't encounter any mishap. There was no other soul in that golden jade stone, so there was no risk of soul snatching. Master, why has the sky changed color? An Xian curiously asked. Your fellow disciple is awakening his past memories, Guan said nonchalantly as he gazed at the sky. Past memories? An Xian immediately became interested, and Guan did not hide the truth, revealing Yang Jian's causality. Hearing that Yang Jian was the reincarnation of a holy king from the holy court, an Xian was even more shocked. No wonder he's so powerful, Master. Could my fellow senior brother also be the reincarnation of a great power? An Xian asked, staring intently at Guan, her eyes apprehensive. Probably not. Guan's answer left an Xian feeling disappointed. If and how was a reincarnation of a great figure, that would mean she was not too bad. The problem was her comparison to an how. However, everyone might have a past life. Once you reach a certain realm, you will understand, Guan said and then looked away. He stood up and said, let's stop here for today. Upon hearing this, Anzin's face revealed a relieved smile. She followed Guan's steps. Master, if Yang Jian awakens his past memories, does that mean he will become the Holy King again? Is the Holy King powerful? What he becomes is up to him to decide. As for the power of a Holy King, let me tell you something. The Great Cold Demon sect previously served a Holy King. A Holy King could command a sect like the Great Cold Demon sect? Don't be overly dramatic. Thinking about it now, having such a powerful Holy King as my junior brother feels like a dream. I'm telling you this, not for you to marvel, but for you to clearly know your own goals. Hee, Master, I will practice diligently. With your teachings, what is a Holy King? The master and disciple continued chatting as they returned to the valley. Guan used the power of causality to alter their conversation, so he wasn't worried about exposure. After reaching the divine thought true immortal realm, Guan studied causality and destiny the most and controlled his own power of causality more and more skillfully. Meanwhile, every being in the broken sea domain looked up at the heavenly phenomenon. Guan even saw some powerful figures flying out from the Holy Land where the Holy Court was located, rushing towards the broken sea domain. Fortunately, Yang Jian was not awakening in the Taitsong continent, otherwise the continent would face trouble again. The golden phenomenon lasted a day and a night, and by noon the next day, Shen Zhen came to visit Guan. After closing the door, she started setting up a formation and busied herself for a while before coming to sit at the table. Yo, still reading Green Hero Travel? Why not read my Supreme Secret Records? Shen Zhen teased. Guan replied, Supreme Secret Records is too short. The implication was, when will you write something new? Shen Zhen seemed not to understand. She took out a scroll from her storage bag and spread it out on the table. She had actually drawn the golden phenomenon from yesterday. The golden sky enveloped the land and mountains, showcasing the majestic atmosphere of the immense landscape. Guan noticed that as the scroll was unrolled, the heaven and earth rules gradually drew near. Once again, she used her painting to move the heaven and earth rules. Yesterday's phenomenon was no simple matter. It gave me an indescribable feeling. Shen Zhen began to share her thoughts on her painting process. However, Guan caught a special power emerging from the depths of the heaven and earth rules. This power somewhat resembled the inheritance left by Heaven sect. Could it be that Yang Jian's past life was also related to the heavenly Tao represented by Heaven sect? Besides this power, Guan was interested in the reincarnation rules. This painting also attracted the reincarnation rules. Heaven and earth rules are omnipresent, only elusive to mortal spirits. In the eyes of a divine thought true immortal, heaven and earth comprise many layers. Beneath the heaven and earth rules lies even deeper forces of order. After Shen Zhen introduced her painting process, she proudly asked, What do you think? It seems you've sensed my painting intent. Want you comment? Guan focused on the scroll and replied, It indeed makes one easily lose their mind. You are very impressive. That's right. Shen Zhen raised her jaw, extremely proud. Just as Guan was about to speak, the scroll suddenly burst into flames, startling Shen Zhen as she tried to extinguish it. Don't approach. This fire is not right. Guan said sternly, stopping Xinzhen from acting rashly. Chapter 331. The great emperor from the silent destruction domain Guan's gaze remained fixed on the burning scroll on the table while his divine sense locked onto outer heaven. Above the great heavenly spirit land hung 7 suns. From within one of those suns, the eyes of a mysterious colossal creature opened and stared directly at Guan's attic. It was this creature that caused the scroll to burn. Guan was not perturbed. The beings in those 7 days all possessed the cultivation level of the carefree primordial immortal, posing no threat to him, but he could feel that they bore great karmic debts and were backed by a mighty presence. Thinking about it, it was normal. After all, if the Holy Court could contain them, either their patron was the Holy Court or their patron was feared by the Holy Court. Regardless of the situation, Guan did not want to stir trouble unnecessarily. Soon, the scroll on the table turned to ash, yet it miraculously did not affect the table's surface. Xinzhen asked, somewhat shaken, "What was that just now?" Even with her divinity transformation realm cultivation level, she could not understand how the flames appeared and vanished. At this moment, she felt as if she had incurred the wrath of the heavens. Guan took a deep breath and said, "I'm not sure, it seems like you shouldn't have painted yesterday's vision." Xinzhen frowned and asked, "Only yesterday?" "It seems so, since you've painted other pictures before without such events occurring," Guan replied. Thinking about it, the karmic debt hidden by Yongjian seemed to be related to those 7 days. Xinzhen took a deep breath and said, "Forget it, my cultivation is too weak, and I certainly cannot provoke them." With her words, Guan saw the mysterious creature within the sun close its eyes. Xinzhen had managed to escape this ordeal. It was merely a warning, indicating that the mysterious beings of the 7 days were not so murderous or domineering. Guan sat back down and teased, "You're quite something, managing to draw a picture that provokes the wrath of the heavens." Xinzhen did not take pride in that but earnestly said, "Indeed, I felt I was capturing an obscure and mysterious state while painting, and each time after I finished painting, it became easier for me to cultivate. Many confusions in cultivation would also become clearer." "It seems you're also about to undergo a profound transformation," Guan said enviously. Only then did Xinzhen smile, snorting, "Be nicer to me from now on. Perhaps I'll become an immortal someday." "All right, immortal Shen." "Good boy. How shameless." Daring to offend a future immortal?" The two began to bicker, and the fear in Shenzhen's heart was swept away. She felt that she needed to be more cautious about her future paintings. She had to discern clearly what should be painted and what should not. An hour later, Shenzhen left. Guan then lay back in his chair and watched Yongjian and Heaven's sect. After awakening his past life memories, Yongjian's cultivation had not experienced substantial transformation, but his whole demeanor indeed had changed. Guan watched for a while and, confirming that Yongjian was unharmed, withdrew his gaze. In the days that followed, Yongjian and Heaven's sect stayed on that island, protected by Heaven's sect's formation. Many great cultivators passed by, unable to detect their existence. Until the summer came. Guan rode the Blood Prison Great Saint down from the transmission array platform, feeling cheerful. Just as he was about to leave, Nine-Finger Divine Lord approached him curiously and asked, "Guan, your disciple in Exine has changed significantly lately. What did you teach her?" Because Guan had previously mentored Yongjian, he believed in Xin's changes were related to Guan, which made him more curious about the being behind Guan. The most mysterious and powerful entity in the Supreme Sect was Sword Venerable Fudao. Nine-Finger Divine Lord had always felt that Guan was connected to Sword Venerable Fudao. Perhaps Guan's achievement in Go was related to Sword Venerable Fudao. As for the possibility that Guan was Sword Venerable Fudao, after learning Guan's age, he ceased to think in that direction. Unique Taoist sorcery, indescribable and unutterable, unless you become my disciple. Guan looked down at Nine-Finger Divine Lord and said with a proud smile, causing Nine-Finger Divine Lord to roll his eyes. "You know my cultivation level is quite high, and yet you dare take me as a disciple?" Nine-Finger Divine Lord said with irritation. Guan shrugged and replied, "The accomplished can be teachers. You surely have aspects where you lag behind me. Could it be that in your life you only pursue cultivation levels? Could it be that in this world, only energy absorption can lead to the Tao?" Upon hearing this, Nine-Finger Divine Lord did not counter but fell into thought. Guan patted the head of the Blood Prison Great Saint, urging him to move forward. The Blood Prison Great Saint had been cultivating the primordial reincarnation skill for years. Though his cultivation level was still sealed, he was hopeful about the future. 1,000 years from now, he would surely become an immortal. Nine-Finger Divine Lord turned his head and asked, "Can one also achieve the Tao through playing Go?" "Who can say for sure? No matter what you do, as long as you put your heart into it, everything is possible," Guan replied casually. Nine-Finger Divine Lord had clearly been seriously injured. His cultivation level was certainly not just that of a wandering immortal, but Guan was not interested in his past. Watching Guan's retreating figure, Nine-Finger Divine Lord sensed a transcendental aura from this young man. He seemed to have seen through the mundane secular world, appearing more like an immortal than actual immortals. Thus, it seemed that Sword Venerable Fu Dao remained in the supreme sect perhaps for this young man? This speculation made Nine-Finger Divine Lord increasingly convinced. It appeared staying in the supreme sect was the right choice. Nine-Finger Divine Lord looked toward Divine Heart Sun, who was reading under a tree. Previously, he thought Divine Heart Sun was possessed, but now upon seeing him again, he suddenly felt that Divine Heart Sun might also achieve the Tao. Then looking at the third Medicine Valley, he had a strong feeling. In the years to come, this Medicine Valley would spawn many beings who would stir the winds and clouds of the world. This intrigued him, and anticipation bubbled up in his heart. He would wait and see what kind of person Sword Venerable Fu Dao's chosen land could nurture. Elsewhere, Guan went upstairs. He closed the door of his room, sat down in the chair, and took the miniature Qing Tian peak that had become a piece of ornament at his waist, placing it on the table. Today, he felt a slight anomaly within Qing Tian peak, related to that mysterious heavenly demon. That fellow couldn't restrain himself anymore. Guan's divine sense probed into Qing Tian peak, which also concealed a realm within it. Although not as extensive as the realms within Divine Exotic City, this realm was broader than the Taitsong continent. At that moment, inside a dilapidated temple, Guan's divine sense avatar walked in. Sunlight pierced through the worn temple walls, elongating Guan's shadow. Guan approached a wall crowded with ancient paintings, pitted and aged, their history unknown. "Come out, let's talk. Give me a reason and I want to race you," Guan stated emotionlessly. His gaze fixed on the wall. As the words fell, wisps of demonic qi seeped from the surface of the dilapidated wall. Even in broad daylight, they appeared haunting and horrifying. Shortly after, a gaunt black-clad old man crawled out from the demonic qi as if transcending time. His eyes brimming with bloodshot veins. He locked his gaze on Guan the moment he emerged. Upon standing up, he asked in a deep voice, "Who exactly are you, and what do you want?" Guan answered, "You impact Qing Tian Peak toward my mountain. You ask me what I want?" Upon hearing this, the old man's expression grew even grimmer, and he fell silent, his eyes flickering. "Are you here because of the demon fetus?" Guan asked. Upon hearing this, the old man's face changed drastically, and his body began to tremble. He stared intently at Guan and asked, "What have you done to him?" "I haven't touched him yet, but the trouble he has caused me seems to be growing." Guan's tone remained indifferent, making it hard for the old man to gauge his thoughts. The old man hesitated before speaking. "You and us bear no enmity?" Guan remained silent. Emboldened, the old man continued, "If you do not wish to be entangled in this great karma, it would be wise to leave this place. The demon fetus is a reincarnation of the great emperor from the silent destruction domain, gestated for tens of thousands of years and immovable, with more heavenly demons yet to descend." Guan pondered internally but asked aloud, "So, you have already established contacts with some of the upper echelons of the Holy Court?" The old man answered, "If you truly don't wish to involve yourself in this karma, it's best not to inquire further. Inquiring more will inevitably alert certain beings." When Guan put forward this question, it indicated to the old man that Guan was not connected to the Holy Court, so he did not wish to make an enemy of Guan. Given Guan's methods in suppressing Qing Tian Peak, he knew he was no match. "What is the purpose of your infiltration into the great heavenly spirit land? It wouldn't be to target the beings of this realm, would it? If so, where could I possibly flee to?" Guan asked slowly. He was also making a decision. Whether to leave Mortal World Peak. Logically, if he wanted to avoid trouble, he should leave. The universe is vast. There are always places to hide.
Besides, our plans cannot commence in the short term, the old man replied, sensing Guanena's intention to withdraw. He felt more confident.
What was the cultivation level of the demon fetus in his previous life? Guan inquired. The great emperor in his previous life was an entity of the immortal 8th layer heaven.
It won't be difficult for him to reach the immortal 7th layer heaven in this life, the old man replied.
Even though the old man was a carefree primordial immortal, to him, reaching the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm was challenging, not to mention higher realms. The immortal 7th layer heaven was already in existence that could traverse the universe in his mind, unless those eternal beings took action. Immortal 8th layer heaven. Guan's expression turned ugly, but he was slightly relieved internally. The 7th layer was the Tao void mysterious immortal, and the 8th layer was the divine thought true immortal realm where he belonged. He was at the 9th level of divine thought true immortal realm.
The old man, thinking Guan had been frightened, continued, "As long as you leave this place, even if I find the demon fetus, it will take thousands of years to fully form him. You have plenty of time to find a new place for cultivation."
Thousands of years? The pressure in Guan's heart sharply decreased. If it took the old man thousands of years with his help, wouldn't it take tens of thousands of years without him?
Guan spoke. "Allow me a few more years to think. I should have that much time, right?"
The old man did not develop hostility toward him, so he wanted to give the old man a chance. Upon hearing this, the old man's expression relaxed considerably, and he raised his hand in salute, saying, "Of course, I hope you can see reason and not delay your future prospects." He could not escape Qingtian Peak, nor could he send out a message. He could only try to maintain good relations with Guan by blending softness with firmness. Chapter 332 Earth Element Spirit. Guan set down the Qingtian Peak and, after his conversation with the man in black came to an end, his heart grew calm. In situations where the threat was not that great, he naturally wouldn't run away. He would only preserve himself when utterly powerless. Moreover, there was a time difference between higher and lower realms. 10 or 100 years might be lengthy for beings of lower realms, but for immortal path life, it was but a fleeting moment. Anyway, the man in black couldn't run away. Guan decided to keep him for the time being to see what sort of realization he would come to. Guan raised his hand and beckoned, attracting a piece of paper from across the space. He was ready to write another secret book. The sun set, and the moon rose. Time turned its pages day by day. Winter snow inevitably arrived. Before the world fell into a blanket of white, Guan went to the wooden fence to enjoy the snowscape. He hadn't stood there long before Ji Xiaoyu walked over, standing side by side with him. Ji Xiaoyu didn't look up at the sky but fixed her gaze on a distant Enchanting. An Enchanting was carrying a plump white spirit rat, constantly moving her little mouth, clearly saying something to the white spirit rat. "She's progressing so fast," Ji Xiaoyu whispered. Could she not? Whenever Guan had time, he would assist an Enchanting in entering the way. Although her lifespan didn't increase rapidly, it made her cultivation twice as effective with half the effort. He genuinely intended to cultivate an Enchanting to surpass an Hao and Yang Jian. "It's all right. Her cultivation level is growing very slowly," Guan spoke. Due to the primordial reincarnation skill, and Xin's cultivation level was always suppressed. Even if she were to release her cultivation level in the future, it would be concealed, with her apparent cultivation level controlled at the Foundation establishment realm. It seemed that Guan would have to tell an Enchanting to restrain herself a bit more, since more and more people had started to notice the changes in her. "The Ji family recently discovered an undersea secret realm and invited me to go. I could take your disciple along. What do you think?" Ji Xiaoyu asked. Upon hearing this, Guan hurriedly shook his head. "An Enchanting is timid, there's no need to take her. I'll be there. She won't encounter any mishaps." "It's unnecessary. It's not something I wish to see, to burden you." "Is that so?" "Yes. I just feel that her aptitude is improving. Staying in Medicine Valley might bury her talent." "I don't like to hear that. Would I delay her?" Guan glared at Ji Xiaoyu. He had intentionally said this to make Ji Xiaoyu believe that the high-level cultivator guiding an Enchanting was someone else. Ji Xiaoyu's mouth lifted into a smile. "All right then, I won't invite her. I want to see what you can make of her." Guan smiled. "Then when are you leaving? And for how long?" This was not the first time Ji Xiaoyu had set out, but Guan felt that the undersea secret realm would again cause trouble. Perhaps this was what it meant to be a great fortune of energy movement. Continuous trials and tribulations, always narrowly escaping disaster and turning peril into safety. I leave tomorrow morning. The competition for sea resources among the noble families is quite fierce. Ji Xiaoyu started talking about the situation at sea. Despite the vastness of the ocean and the richness of its resources, the coveted areas had long been divided by the major powers, making it difficult to gain a foothold at sea. The Ji family, wanting to occupy a region of their own and lay down roots for development, eyed the secret realm. That oceanic secret realm was the source of abundant spiritual energy nearby. Immortal path beings didn't care about such a realm, but those in the mystic heart realm would fight tooth and nail over it. She shifted the conversation from the Ji family to other significant happenings at sea as Guan listened with keen interest. During their conversation, a powerful divine sense swept across the Taitsong continent. Guan was used to this. The other party was probably searching for Yang Jian. Yang Jian, having awakened memories from past lives, shocked many cultivators of the Holy Court, who were still searching for him. Yang Jian didn't run around but focused on cultivating on that island. At sea, only those in the immortal path realm have the power to protect themselves. Even if one achieves nirvana, walking the seas still requires great caution, Ji Xiaoyu remarked, her cultivation having grown higher and allowing her to perceive more. The experiences from her past lives' dreams only deepened her reverence. Guan smiled, with your talent, you'll achieve nirvana sooner or later. Let alone at sea. Right now there was a divine sense of a heaven and earth flying immortal sweeping the continent. Most beings were completely unaware of this. What about you? Ji Xiaoyu turned to look at Guan, asking with a calm tone. Nirvana? I'm afraid I won't have the chance. Guan shook his head and chuckled freely, devoid of any constraints. Ji Xiaoyu offered no consolation, knowing that nirvana was a threshold for mortal spirits to break through fate, a challenge that no one else could assist with. She followed Guan as they both looked up at the snow falling from the sky. The snowflakes began to fall more heavily. On the sprawling seas, Leah sat on the back of a black eagle that sped along, flapping its wings. The sea breeze tousled Lia's long hair, but his eyes remained fixed on the horizon, unblinking. The divine exotic immortal spirit perched on Lia's shoulder, head tilted, asked, "Have you really thought this through? Without using my power, it will be difficult for you to cross the waters ahead. I can sense a dense demon energy there, hiding a great demon of the immortal path." Li Ya's expression was stoic as he answered softly, "Save me when I'm close to death." Ever since his last visit to the divine exotic realm and learning about the origins of divine exotic city, Li Ya's pride had shattered. He didn't blame the primordial ancestor but was rather more grateful. However, he was filled with resentment towards himself. "Leah, oh Leah, what have you been raging about all these years?" All this time, he had always needed the primordial ancestor, needed others' help. Without divine exotic city, what was he? Upon returning to the Star Sea congregations, Leah secluded himself for cultivation and pondered over this question. This seclusion lasted for many years. He had now made up his mind. What he needed to do was improve his physical constitution and insight. If and how could cultivate the ancient treasure body, why couldn't he? So, he embarked on the journey to pursue the treasure body. He learned from an elder that a treasure body had once fallen in a certain sea region, possibly leaving behind an opportunity related to the treasure body. "Leah, actually, you're still young, and you're already quite formidable," the divine exotic immortal spirit consoled, scratching its head. Having spent many years with Leah, it had grown fond of him and didn't want him to take extreme measures. "Don't worry, I will measure my abilities and refrain from making the primordial ancestor take action again," Leah said calmly, his eyes resolute. Following his gaze, dark clouds appeared at the far end of the sea horizon, small but clearly an ominous sign. Meanwhile, on the path of Dingtian Peak on Mortal World Peak, Guan rode the Blood Prison Great Saint while an Xian walked in front of the Blood Prison Great Saint, occasionally looking back and sharing a laugh. The sea breeze blew, stirring Guan's hair by the temples. He withdrew his gaze from spying on Leah and looked towards an Xian. "How many of the medicinal herbs did you memorize today?" It had been 8 years since Ji Xiaoyu left for the undersea secret realm. She had not returned for 8 years, but as Guan saw she wasn't in mortal peril, he allowed her to face the ordeal alone. During these 8 years, Guan taught an Xin no other spells or divine skills. Aside from chi absorption cultivation, she only practiced the stepping path of ages step daily. Wearing a mask, an Xin turned back and said, "Master, rest assured, I remember them all." "Good. Go back and write them into a book, so other disciples can increase their knowledge in the future," Guan nodded. An Xin was about to reply when 2 figures descended from the sky and landed on the stone steps ahead. Upon seeing these 2 people, an Xin immediately tensed up. They were Taoist Lord Yongnian and Fu Shinxiu from the main peak. An Xin thought they were there to demand the Immortal Path's supreme treasure. Taoist Lord Yongnian raised his hand in salute, saying, "May I inquire if Taoist friend has time? My disciple and I have a matter to request." Upon hearing this, Guan responded, "Speak directly, what's the matter?" Taoist Lord Yongnian glanced at Fu Shinxiu and said, "Since Qingtian Peak has no affinity with my disciple, I have found another great opportunity for him, located within the Sea Demon Thunder Domain. It is a treasure left by an ancient great power named Earth Element Spirit. Every 100,000 years it congeals one spirit, and its appearance is not fixed, but it can be confirmed to only appear within the Sea Demon Thunder Domain. Earth Element Spirit." It was the first time Guan had heard of this, and he also became interested. According to Taoist Lord Yongnian, that ancient great power was unfathomable in his cultivation. Before passing away, he used some great divine power to refine his Immortal Path supreme treasure, submerging it into the Sea Demon Thunder Domain, merging it with the ocean, rendering it unfindable. It was only when someone accidentally acquired the Earth Element Spirit that the veil of this opportunity was lifted. The Earth Element Spirit could strengthen the soul of a cultivator, and even demons were eager to obtain it. Later on, the Holy Court took charge of the Sea Demon Thunder Domain, and a holy god decreed that the Thunder Domain was land without an owner. No sect was allowed to occupy it, and regarding the Earth Element Spirit, it all relied on one's power. Mortal World Peak had also sought the Earth Element Spirit. Either fate was there but the affinity was not, or they found the Earth Element Spirit but lacked the power to fight for it. Hearing about the anomaly in the Sea Demon Thunder Domain, which might signal the birth of an Earth Element Spirit, Taoist Lord Yongnian thought of Guan. "Taoist friend Meng, if you could take action, I would be deeply grateful," Taoist Lord Yongnian sincerely said, convinced that Guan had surpassed the carefree immortal realm. Such a great cultivator aiding them would surely clinch the Earth Element Spirit without difficulty. Guan feigned hesitation. "Will this offend other sects?" Taoist Lord Yongnian replied, "The worthy receive treasures, don't they? I've heard that Taoist friend enjoys cultivating medicinal herbs, so I'm willing to transplant a batch of Immortal Path medicinal herbs to Qingtian Peak from the main peak. How about that? Taoist friend is too kind. I've already said that if Mortal World Peak encounters an issue, it'll take action. When do we set out?" Guan spoke earnestly, bringing a smile to Taoist Lord Yongnian's face. Fu Shenxiu's mouth twitched, but he said nothing. Having had Qingtian Peak taken by Guan, it was impossible for him not to feel resentment, yet now he could only maintain courtesy. "How about in 3 days?" Taoist Lord Yongnian asked. "No problem, we'll set out after 3 days then," Guan nodded. Taoist Lord Yongnian thanked him again then left with Fu Shinxiu. An Xin turned back and looked at Guan, wanting but hesitating to speak. Guan glanced at her asking casually, "Want to go and see?" An Xin instinctively wanted to nod but after thinking it through, she shook her head. "Better not, I might cause you trouble." "I want go. I could take you there." "Really?" Surprise sparkled in Nzin's eyes. Guan replied, "If you go, you must diligently practice the step technique I taught you. No slacking off." Upon hearing this, an Xin hesitated for a moment but ultimately nodded. The stepping path of Age's step was indeed exquisite, and even after so many years of practice, she still found it very uncomfortable each time she performed it. So whenever Guan wasn't prompting her, she preferred chi absorption. Chapter 333 Predecessor 3 days passed by quickly. On that clear morning, Guan took an Xin to Mortal World Peak early without bringing the Blood Prison Great Saint, which was, to say the least, rather disappointing for him. The reason he didn't bring the Blood Prison Great Saint was because Guan had acquaintances in the Sea Demon Domain, and he feared it would be inconvenient. As for an Xin, Wearing his specially made mask, it was very difficult for anyone to recognize him. An Xian, who cultivated the all things form and energy art, could also conceal his aura. High-level cultivators did not guess one's identity by appearance. After arriving at Dingtian Peak, Guan read books inside the house, and so did an Xian, though her gaze drifted outside the window from time to time, waiting for the two from Taoist Lord Yongyan to arrive. Close to noon, Taoist Lord Yongyan finally arrived, bringing not only Fu Shenxiu but also a female cultivator. This female cultivator was at the second level of the carefree immortal realm, not as advanced as Fu Shenxiu, but she was older and probably sent by Taoist Lord Yongyan to lead the way. And indeed, all they heard was Taoist Lord Yongyan introduce, "This is my younger martial sister, Dao name Yongxin, known as Fairy Yongxin. She will lead the way to the Sea Demon Domain this time, as I need to stay at Mortal World Peak to avoid any mishaps." Fairy Yongxin followed with a salute to Guan, who returned the gesture. "Let's get going then," said Guan directly. If they could resolve the issue today, it would be great. A portion of the medicinal herbs in the outer world cave had ripened, waiting for him to harvest. Fairy Yongxin had no objections. The group went to the courtyard, where she summoned a small red mansion. The mansion rapidly expanded, taking Guan, Fu Shenxiu, and an Xian inside before turning into a red light disappearing into the sky. Taoist Lord Yongyan stood in the courtyard, looking in the direction where the mansion disappeared, concern in his eyes. Meanwhile, inside the grand hall of the Red Mansion, Fairy Yongxin invited Guan to sit and talk, while an Xian looked around curiously. "You're free to wander around, there's nothing dangerous here," Fairy Yongxin said to an Xian with a gentle smile. She might not have been stunningly beautiful, but her smile was generous and tender, easily engendering goodwill. An Xian glanced at Guan, and only after seeing him nod did she dare to leave. Fu Shenxiu sat opposite Guan, his expression calm. The Sea Demon Domain has already seen the appearance of a carefree primordial immortal. It's said that in these 100,000 years, a great demon has been born there, cultivating for 100,000 years, entering the realm of the carefree primordial immortal, commanding countless demon soldiers, a force not to be underestimated, said Fairy Yongxin. Guan had long ago used his divine sense to probe the Sea Demon Domain. Indeed, it was dangerous and the existence of immortal path entities within was incalculable. But for him, it counted for little. While Fairy Yongxin updated him about the current powers within the Sea Demon Domain, she observed Guan's expressions. Noticing that Guan remained composed, she felt somewhat relieved. He must indeed be a divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. Throughout the history of Mortal World Peak, divine immortals of wondrous Dharma had arisen. After reaching this level, most would head to outer heaven or seek chi fortune in the Holy Court. Few remained on Mortal World Peak. They had extensively discussed Meng Lang's purpose for coming to Mortal World Peak and eventually decided to try to win him over. If this venture went smoothly, Meng Lang would then stand completely together with them at Mortal World Peak. Fairy Yongxin mentioned several names of carefree primordial immortals.
In the great heavenly spirit land, those who cultivated to this realm usually had a reputation and had dealt with each other a lot.
Fairy Yongxin had only encountered this great cultivator, Meng Lang, appearing out of nowhere. She suspected Meng Lang was a pseudonym but did not point it out. After she finished speaking, Guan looked at the silent Fu Shenxiu and said, "Don't worry, as long as the earth element spirit is still there, it will surely belong to you." Upon hearing this, Fu Shenxiu hastened to thank him. He felt a mix of emotions. He had been sullen ever since Guan took Qingtian Peak away from him, but hearing Guan's words, he inexplicably admired Guan. Those of us in immortal cultivation should indeed have such a spirit. Thinking of Guan seizing Qingtian Peak with a wave of his hand, Fu Shenxiu's eyes flashed with ardent desire. In fact, he anticipated the earth element spirit even more than Qingtian Peak. All immortal path supreme treasures are external. It's said that the strongest among the immortal path will eventually create their own treasures, and he had always believed he could reach the summit of the 9 heavens of immortal path. More than external wealth, he valued the improvement of his own strength. In the subsequent conversation, Fu Shenxiu also started speaking, providing specific information about some carefree primordial immortals. Fairy Yongxin felt somewhat relieved. She was aware of the conflict between the two, and she hadn't expected Guan to give Fu Shenxiu a way out so readily. It seemed he was not that difficult to get along with after all.
When an Xian returned to Guan's side, she felt the atmosphere was very harmonious, which was not surprising to her. In her eyes, her master always managed to get along well with others and have enjoyable interactions. "Let me help the fairy to speed up a bit," Guan said with a smile. Immediately after, Fairy Yongxin's face changed, as she sensed Guan's vast, ocean-like mana. The flight speed of the Red Mansion surged. Fairy Yongxin suppressed the shock in her heart and asked, "Taoist friend, have you been to the Sea Demon domain?" "No, but I have captured it with divine sense before. This Sea Demon domain is not simple. You only know the surface, but inside lies a divine immortal of wondrous dharma who will be our greatest obstruction," Guan replied with a shake of his head, smiling. As he spoke, he picked up the teacup next to him and began to sip tea. Divine immortal of wondrous dharma. Fairy Yongxin couldn't maintain her composure, and her eyebrows involuntarily furrowed. Fu Xinxiu was inwardly shocked. How profound must this person's Tao level be to mention the divine immortal of wondrous dharma so casually? An Xian was filled with curiosity. What realm was the divine immortal of wondrous dharma? A realm above the wandering immortal? Without mentioning the heaven and earth flying immortal, Fairy Yongxin and Fu Xinxiu led her to mistakenly think the divine immortal of wondrous dharma realm lay immediately after the wandering immortal. He fears those above the 5th level of the divine immortal of wondrous dharma realm. Fairy Yongxin thought to herself and gazed at Guan with a mix of reverence and anticipation. In the following conversation, Fairy Yongxin dared not address Guan merely as a Taoist friend but referred to him as a senior. Guan did not shy away from this title, graciously accepting it. This made an Xian proud, and she sat up straighter. Boom! The deafening thunder echoed above the ocean, with torrents of waves rising and crashing down. A black hawk skimmed through the tempest. Leah stood on the back of the hawk, his brows furrowed, murmuring, "I run into such a fierce demon aura just after entering. That old guy wouldn't have tricked me, would he?" On his shoulder, the divine exotic immortal spirit nodded frantically, saying, "I've had a bad feeling about him for a while now. He also calls himself the immortal-seeking Taoist, which sounds like a bluff to me." Li Ya's brows relaxed and he whispered, "Since I'm already here, I can't leave empty-handed. If I don't find the cultivation technique for the treasure body, looking for a demon treasure to enhance chi blood isn't a bad idea either." He drew the treasure sword from his waist, a slender blade that reflected a cold light amidst the downpour. Boom! Suddenly, far out at sea, an explosion erupted, and a terrifying black shadow leapt from the water, immense and imposing as if Mount Tai itself had risen from the ocean floor and swiftly entered the clouds. The hawk beneath Leah immediately slowed down, not daring to approach rashly. Chapter 334. Is this it? A flash of red light zipped across the sea covered by storm clouds, fast as lightning. Guan, an Xian, Fairy Yongxin, and Fu Xinxiu stood on the edge of the terrace, gazing over the spectacular vista of the Sea Demon Thunder Domain. Demon energy permeated the area, but it could not obscure the fearsome waves and countless lightning bolts weaving through heaven and sea like monstrous dragons and serpents, fearsomely twisting. Every so often, a giant demon beast as large as mountains would burst from the sea surface and roar unrestrained, reminiscent of the primeval chaos. The earth element spirit appears in a place engulfed by a unique radiance, making it quite easy to locate. However, the earth element spirit may attempt to escape. If it is not captured quickly, it will dive into the sea and vanish without a trace, only reappearing the next time, Fairy Yongxin spoke. Guan nodded slightly. He could feel a strong divine thought pervading this ocean, dissipating within the waters, unable to condense. It seemed that the ancient great cultivator Fairy Yongxin mentioned had at least the cultivation level of a divine soul true immortal. Divine soul true immortals could also perish. Who knew what calamity he had faced? While pondering, Guan's divine thought enveloped the Sea Demon Thunder Domain. The domain was immense, larger even than the entirety of the Broken Sea Domain, teeming with countless demon creatures from every possible realm, ranging from the divine immortal of wondrous dharma down to those in the energy cultivation realm. There were many areas within the domain that his divine thought could not penetrate directly. They were guarded by powerful restrictions. Though Guan could forcefully break through with focused divine thought and succeed, it would inevitably destroy the restrictions and cause the internal minor heaven and earth to shatter. Guan's divine thought locked onto that divine immortal of wondrous dharma.
This person was hidden within an island, surrounded by seas infested with demons each as large as the island itself, comparable to heaven and earth flying immortals. He just caught sight of a wandering immortal passing nearby, then watched as the immortal was swallowed whole by a black giant whale, so fast that its primordial spirit couldn't even escape. It was a female cultivator, almost like a fairy. Such a pity. Guan thought to himself while he responded to Fairy Yongshin. His divine thought quickly caught sight of a place glowing with an unusual light, and he directed Fairy Yongshin to fly in that direction. Standing beside Guan, an Xian observed everything around with intense curiosity. Such dense demon energy, all condensed into black mist. If she fell into the sea demon thunder domain alone, she felt it would be better just to end her life rather than try to navigate and survive in such a place. Boom, in the distance, the sea surface exploded as a 10-mile-long giant deep red fish leaped out. Looking closely, its body was entangled by 2 terrifying tentacles. And Zin's gaze had just reached the scene when she saw the deep red fish being crushed, its flesh and blood scattering, which made her shudder all over. Guan, Fairy Yongshin, and Fu Xinxiu seemed quite accustomed to this. Guan noticed that along the fringes of the sea demon thunder domain stood city forts similar to those in the main city of the Broken Sea domain, indicating that the Holy Court had taken control of this sea area. Not allowing other sects to occupy it implied they made the rules. No wonder there were many cultivators fighting in groups, led by heaven and earth flying immortals, staying far from where the earth element spirit was located. Clearly, they were not here for the earth element spirit. Upon closer inspection, Guan felt an aura similar to Lu Xianya's chi fortune on them. After a while, they reached a sea area enveloped in blue light, stretching 10,000 miles, making even the clouded sky appear transparent. Within the blue light sea, 2 carefree primordial immortals were engaged in fierce combat. Their divine skills were immensely powerful, yet the force of their battle did not exceed the range of the blue light. Guan's gaze locked onto a man named Zhao Qizhen who was dressed in battle armor, wielding a divine weapon, surrounded by a fire phoenix, casting spells with a majestic and domineering aura. He was holding a blue crystal stone in his other hand. Surely that was the earth element spirit. Guan could feel a wisp of divine thought within the blue crystal stone, similar to the divine thought in the sea. Zhao family's Zhao Qizhen, Fu Xinxiu declared coldly as he stared at Zhao Qizhen. Fairy Yongshin smiled and said, Zhao Qizhen and Xinxiu are fated rivals, clashing at every major cultivation level. An Xian looked toward Fu Xinxiu, curious about who had won but afraid to ask. Fu Xinxiu huffed, I lost the last combat, but next time, I will win. Guan was curious. Was there a family powerful enough to rival mortal world peak? The fact that Fairy Yongshin highlighted Zhao Qizhen's family, instead of his sect, was enough to demonstrate the Zhao family's strength. An Xian was eager to ask, why next time, not now? Fairy Yongshin continued to introduce Zhao Qizhen's opponent, a supreme elder of a sect. A supreme elder losing to a family genius already reflected the disparity in their strengths. Their presence also put pressure on the 2 carefree primordial immortals, particularly on Zhao Qizhen, who felt Fu Shengxia's aura. For a moment, the 2 combatants tacitly slowed the rhythm of their battle, keeping an eye out for the arrival of a third-party force. Fairy Yongshin and Fu Xinxiu also turned to Guan, curious to see how he would make his move. An Xian watched nervously ahead. After arriving in the blue light area, she could truly sense the power of the carefree primordial immortals. It was terrifying. Such overwhelming battle pressure had never appeared even at the Heaven Tier tournament. Guan raised his right hand and made a grabbing gesture at the engaged Zhao Qizhen, who vanished into thin air. The carefree primordial immortal he was fighting immediately retreated, his gaze swiftly turning toward the distant building. Fairy Yongshin and Fu Xinxiu did the same, their eyes falling on Guan's hand, and the 2 carefree primordial immortals suddenly looked alarmed. Coming to her senses, an Xian instinctively turned her head and stared wide-eyed. The previously dominant Zhao Qizhen was now in Guan's hand, tiny as an insect. Zhao Qizhen looked up, shock and dread filling his face, most terrified by his inability to escape, bound by an invisible intangible force. Guan raised his left hand, extending his forefinger and middle finger. Zhao Qizhen felt something slip from his hand, and looking down, saw the earth element spirit gone, now between Guan's fingers. Guan casually tossed it, and the earth element spirit fell into Fu Shengxia's hands. Fu Shenxiu stood dumbfounded, and Fairy Yongxin's eyes also widened. It was successful just like that? Guan threw Zhao Qizhen from the palm of his right hand. Zhao Qizhen regained his freedom, returning to his original size. Stabilizing himself, he looked at Guan, his eyes filled with dread. Guan, expressionless, couldn't be bothered to say anything and instead turned to Fairy Yongxin. "Let's go." Fairy Yongxin, coming to her senses, instinctively cast a spell, propelling the building. Guan simply revealed himself and did not earn the hostility of Zhao and his companion, so he spared their lives. Watching the building recede, Zhao Qizhen's handsome face flushed with embarrassment. He tried to calm his emotions. Just from the other's display of power, he knew he was no match. If it were him, he probably would not have spared a life. Now all he had was confusion. Since when did Mortal World Peak have such a powerful figure? His capabilities must certainly be that of a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. Taking a deep breath, he turned to face the carefree primordial immortal he had been fighting, raised a hand in salute, leaving the latter quite stunned. Before the immortal could return the gesture, Zhao had already turned and left. On the building, Fu Shenxiu held the earth element spirit, a complex look on his face. Fairy Yongxin was the first to thank Guan, and Fu Shenxiu hurriedly followed suit. "Is that it?" An Xian couldn't help asking. That made the expressions of Fairy Yongxin and Fu Shenxiu even more complex. Guan just smiled. Isn't it good when things go smoothly? An Xian quickly said, "Of course it's good, I mean," seeing her struggle to explain, Guan merely chuckled. "Let's head back first." Fairy Yongxin, smiling, felt this smooth operation was absolutely a surprise for her. Even if a carefree primordial immortal were to come to the Sea Demon Thunder Domain, they would face life and death risks. As they reached outside the Sea Demon Thunder Domain, Guan suddenly grabbed Nzin's shoulder, causing her heart to skip a beat, and she soon found herself flying out of the building. Guan, holding her shoulder with one hand and waving the other, sent the building into the distance. Fairy Yongxin and Fu Shenxiu were taken aback. Before they could react, Guan's voice reached their ears. "You two go ahead." The building sped away, the two feeling the rules of heaven and earth retreating along the way, allowing unimpeded passage, an intricate technique beyond their comprehension. "It seems he has another purpose," Fairy Yongxin remarked. Fu Shenxiu added, "I think it's because his disciple still wants to see more." Fairy Yongxin looked at him in surprise, asking, "Is he so capricious?" With his cultivation level, how can that be considered capricious? Fu Shenxiu responded, his gaze on the earth element spirit in his hand. His perception of Guan completely transformed. Meanwhile, Guan and an Xian soared on clouds, his divine thought covering an Xian, entering a special state where only those who reached the state of Tao Void Mysterious Immortal could see them. "Master, you don't have to do this for me. It's so dangerous here," an Xian cautiously spoke, deeply touched. Guan smiled. "Don't overthink it, it's not for you." "For whom then?" "You'll know soon." Hearing Guan say this, an Xian grew even more curious about what lay ahead. The storm clouds churned quickly along the way, and an Xian felt no discomfort despite their swift pace. Before long, Guan stopped. Lightning flashed through the clouds ahead, with demon mist swirling below. Suddenly, numerous evil ghosts burst out from the sea of clouds, startling an Xian, who instinctively moved closer to Guan. Booming sounds continuously came from below, drawing Nzin's attention. Moved by Guan's intent, they descended below the cloud sea, where an Xian was captivated by the massive battle occurring over the sea. A vast city phantom stood above the sea surface, from which endless divine souls and strange ghosts flew out, attacking the demons around Divine Exotic City. This was a chaotic war. Divine Exotic City? Is Martial Uncle Leia here? An Xian asked excitedly. Leia had participated in the Heaven Tier tournament, displaying Divine Exotic City's power, leaving a deep impression on an Xian. When she thought of the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, Leia came to mind. "That's an incredible Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Master, is your Qing Tian Peak this strong?" An Xian curiously asked. Guan snorted. Divine Exotic City is a broken Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Merely a pseudo-Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. In terms of true power, it cannot compare to Qing Tian Peak. Let me show you later.
Chapter 335. Master's wife Leah stood atop the tower, long sword in hand, his expression grave. Divine exotic immortal spirit stood on Leah's shoulder, full of vigor, continuously waving its arms. Ever since Leah had learned the truth, it had ceased its act. At first, Leah felt somewhat awkward, but now, his feelings were overtaken by worry. The battle had progressed to a point where Divine Exotic City could barely advance. The demons were too strong and even understood formation techniques, effectively halting the advance of Divine Exotic City, with more demons continually joining the battlefield. If things continued this way, Divine Exotic City might well be breached. What Leah worried about most was attracting even more terrifying demon creatures. He felt a desire to retreat, fearing that the troubles would only grow and force the primordial ancestor to intervene. Leah gritted his teeth, ready to call for a retreat, when suddenly, the divine exotic immortal spirit on his shoulder started yowling loudly. "I am going to unleash my divine might." The divine exotic immortal spirit raised its right arm, its youthful voice filled with excitement. Leah was stunned. He immediately looked up, scanning the surroundings. The distant thunderclouds were heavily interconnected, with no end in sight. The more he saw, the faster his gaze moved, as if searching for something. Guin noticed Leah's actions and a smile appeared on his face. He was already aware of Leah's burden because the divine exotic immortal spirit had told him, but he hadn't said anything. Some things had to be overcome by oneself. Like Long Jean, a powerful figure, who never hesitated and was always decisive. Guin immediately took Qing Tian Peak from his waist. The peak, smaller than a palm, refracted the thunderlight, emitting an ancient aura, unsettling an Xian profoundly. Under Enzin's watch, Guin raised his hand and tossed Qing Tian Peak upward into the sea of clouds. The next second, a vast momentum descended, enveloping the entire ocean. Leah and Divine Exotic Immortal Spirit both felt something and looked up simultaneously. The previously excited Divine Exotic Immortal Spirit widened its eyes, a stunned expression on its face. Leah was similarly dumbstruck. The rolling sea of clouds dispersed, and a tremendously large mountain suddenly emerged. In comparison, everything else seemed minuscule. It was tens of thousands of feet from the sea surface. Even the trees on the mountain appeared gigantic, resembling divine soldiers exerting a daunting presence. In this moment, Divine Exotic City seemed like a mere pebble, demonstrating the grandeur of Qing Tian Peak. Guin led an Xian to the summit. An Xian looked up to see a brilliant starry sky and also witnessed 7 dazzling suns, all reflecting in her eyes. As soon as Qing Tian Peak appeared, it grabbed the attention of all the demons. The demons, upon seeing Qing Tian Peak, were equally scared. "What is that? It's a huge mountain. No, an immortal treasure. Damn it, why is there another supreme treasure appearing? This aura. No good, it's dangerous. Retreat. Hurry, retreat." Panicked cries came from the demons as they scattered like monkeys when a tree falls, fleeing at tremendous speed. Qing Tian Peak remained suspended in the air without touching down. Guin turned to an Xian and chuckled. "It seems we can't show the full might of Qing Tian Peak." An Xian wasn't foolish and shook her head. "That's because, Master, you are merciful. Otherwise they wouldn't think of escaping." Guin just laughed and shook his head. In that moment, he thought of Long Jean and Xiao Shengtian, and thus decided to adhere to his principles. His target for elimination should at least be beings with whom he had grievances. This would prevent others from speculating other reasons. Moreover, his annual gain in lifespan had already reached 1.5 million years, and he had no reason to needlessly kill innocents and accumulate karma. After all, he could play it safe and slowly become stronger. Guan's greatest cruelty was against plants and trees, as all beings must eat. Which cultivator doesn't use medicinal herbs for alchemy? What he could do was choose the path that best suited his own growth. That's why, to Enzin's comment about mercy, Guin only smiled. He didn't consider himself merciful. His choices were also governed by a mindset of seeking benefits and avoiding harm. As the demons dispersed, the divine exotic immortal spirit heaved a sigh of relief. Leah, meanwhile, looked up at the majestic Qing Tian Peak, feeling a sense of relief at that moment. So that's how it is. Leah had always felt unworthy of owning Divine Exotic City, But now, seeing the grandeur of Qingtian Peak, he realized the primordial ancestor possessed even stronger treasures.
What was there to worry about?
He didn't even know how high the primordial ancestor's Tao level was. Rather than being burdened, he would rather strive to become stronger and repay the primordial ancestor later. No matter how much he tried to think for the primordial ancestor's sake now, he couldn't possibly help the primordial ancestor, who was gambling on his future, not the present. As Qingtian Peak rose higher and rapidly shrank, it gave Leah a sensation of flying beyond the heavens. After Qingtian Peak disappeared, Leah didn't see the figure he hoped to see. He took a deep breath and said, "Let's go." The divine exotic immortal spirit turned its head and asked with surprise, "Where to?"
"To a place where we can compete."
"Clearly, this is not suitable for us. Otherwise the primordial ancestor wouldn't have used another supreme treasure to save us," Leah said calmly. The divine exotic immortal spirit scratched its head, found the reasoning sound, and nodded in agreement. More and more great cultivators from the supreme sect were appearing, and Tianya Valley could no longer be hidden, but LV Batian and Li Xiandao had reached an agreement, so Tianya Valley remained unscathed. Ji Xiaoyu had learned about the situation inside Tianya Valley through the Ji family.
"How could it be?" Guan retorted with a glare.
Ji Xiaoyu pulled out a chair to sit down and began to recount her experiences over the years.
Guan listened intently.
After talking for 2 ancient hours, Ji Xiaoyu finally left. After Ji Xiaoyu went downstairs, she saw an Xian speaking with 5 female disciples. Thus, she waited on the spot. Once the 5 female disciples had left, she approached an Xian. At this moment, the sun began to set. An Xian turned around, saw Ji Xiaoyu approaching, and quickly stepped forward to greet her. In her heart, Ji Xiaoyu was one of the potential sect mothers, a very strong contender, capable of living under the sect leader's floor. She had to be treated with respect.
"Your talent is commendable. If you need help, just let me know.
My Ji family has some resources, and we can assist you," Ji Xiaoyu said, staring at an Xian. Upon hearing this, an Xian hurriedly thanked her, then added, "Thank you for the kind offer from the Ji family, but it's not necessary after all, I have my master." Ji Xiaoyu interrupted her, "Don't mind his attitude.
I'm helping you for his sake.
The stronger you are, the better you can protect him."
With that, she turned and walked away.
Watching her retreating figure, an Xian felt moved. Ji Xiaoyu truly had a domineering aura. An Xian silently compared herself. Despite her rapid progress, she was not yet a match for Ji Xiaoyu. She decided to set Ji Xiaoyu as her target. Surpassing Ji Xiaoyu would enable her to chase after an Hao and Yang Jian. She refused to believe that Ji Xiaoyu's talent could surpass an Hao and Yang Jian. Inside the house, Guan was reading a book, the corners of his mouth curling into a smile. The evening sunlight burst through the window, bathing him in a layer of rosy light, as if he were clad in a robe of twilight.
The sun set, and the moon rose.
The following morning, Guan left the supreme sect alone, controlling his sword as he flew into the distance. Once he was no longer locked onto by divine sense, his figure vanished instantly.
An hour later,
Guan arrived in front of the gate of Juhua sect, surrounded by undulating mountains. From the cliff, each mountain boasted a sea of flowers, a magnificent sight. When he took out the sect leader level token from the supreme sect, the disciples of Juhua sect halted their hostility and even warmly escorted him inside. Hearing that Guan was seeking the sect leader, the disciples dared not delay and immediately guided him, as the token Guan showed was of sect leader level from the supreme sect. An hour later, Guan was situated in a separate courtyard. He sensed that Zhang Qiong was in closed-door cultivation, with disciples guarding outside. Sure enough, not much later, the guiding disciple hurried back, asking him to wait a few days since the sect leader was in seclusion. Guan wasn't in a hurry. With Zhang Qiong in seclusion, he'd discreetly help her with her path enlightenment and leave. Once she found out Guan had been looking for her but hadn't waited, she'd definitely feel embarrassed. Just thinking about it, Guan was a little excited. Chapter 336. Reincarnation to Earth. After the disciples of Juhua sect left, Guan sat inside the house and suddenly found himself feeling a bit bored. Do I need a round of reincarnation evolution?
If he changed locations for the evolution this time, maybe he would have different luck. His lifespan had already surpassed 500 million years. In a few years, the outer world cave would experience another surge in lifespan. It might be fun to try. Mainly because lifespan samsara could enhance Guan's comprehension of the Tao rules, especially the way of cause and effect. He wasn't doing it for fun but for cultivation. Let's start one round. After convincing himself, Guan sat down and drank a cup of tea. While pouring another, he initiated lifespan samsara. The tense and thrilling reincarnation evolution began. You have expended 10 million years of your lifespan to initiate reincarnation evolution. Beginning connection with Tao rules. Searching for reincarnation realm. You have the following realm choices, choose any one of them. 1. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. 2. Divine Origin Great Heaven and Earth. 3. Primordial Great Heaven and Earth. Seeing these three options, Guan was immediately attracted to the primordial Great Heaven and Earth. His physique was the primordial ultimate body, and he had always suspected that primordial pointed to a certain realm or world. How could he not be curious upon seeing the word primordial? He chose it, after all, he had already experienced the first two Great Heaven and Earth. Guan immediately made his choice. You have chosen to reincarnate into primordial Great Heaven and Earth. Given that the Tao rules of this realm are too powerful, you temporarily cannot activate the ability to seize lifespan, nor can you activate phase-based functions. Reincarnation evolution begins. Good. It's yet another world comparable to divine origin Great Heaven and Earth, which means there exist beings here who transcend the 9 heavens of immortal path. Guan felt even more anticipatory in his heart. In your first year, you were born on planet Earth in Jiang City, Huaxia, and your parents named you Lu Han Earth. Guan's gaze underwent a subtle change. At 6 years old, you started first grade in elementary school. Because you were too naughty and injured a classmate, you were severely punished by your father. At 12, you entered the first year of junior high school, where you displayed extraordinary intelligence and ranked at the top of your class. At 15, you were admitted to Jiang City's top high school. There, through a classmate's introduction, you began reading online novels. Due to excessive indulgence, your academic performance began to decline. At 18, just after the Spring Festival, you turned over a new leaf, put down your phone, and vowed to reclaim your dignity as a top student. However, on the eve of the college entrance examination, the world changed drastically. There were earthquakes, tsunamis, and humanity faced apocalyptic challenges. 7 days of chaos later, nations stabilized their order, but mysterious and enormous black gates appeared in cities. Seeing the black gate from a distance, you hesitated, unsure whether to approach it. Seeing the previous prompts, Guan thought he would live a lackluster life. Fortunately, the apocalypse arrived. It wasn't that he found an ordinary life unsatisfactory, but he had spent 10 million years of lifespan for a few decades of human life. How could he accept that? Guan took a deep breath and made his choice. You choose to approach the black gate. As you reached it, the gate suddenly shook, causing all nearby people to flee instinctively. Before you could escape, you were sucked into the gate, and your consciousness plunged into darkness. When you awoke, you found yourself in a wild mountainous area with only a dozen other people, some of whom were already awake. You started exploring and fighting for survival. At 19, after half a year, you finally made your way out of the wilderness and saw the silhouette of a city. Of your original group, only 4 remained. You entered the city and discovered it was an ancient township with everyone dressed in traditional attire. To survive, you began working in the city and ultimately realized you had traveled back in time. At 20, an immortal in the city started accepting disciples. Many people gathered to watch, and you too went and were discovered to have a spirit root. Thus, you followed the immortal to the outer sect of the Tao court for training. Your 3 companions, discovered to have spirit roots as well, joined you, and together you wept, believing a wonderful life was about to start. But upon reaching the outer sect, you learned you would start as servant disciples. At 21, you found out your girlfriend, Chang Qianqian, had attached herself to an outer disciple. After a quarrel, the 2 of you had a falling out, and your 2 companions chose to side with Chang Qianqian, leaving you isolated and alone. At 24, hearing of Chang Qianqian's horrible death, you inquired from a former companion and learned she had died during an outer disciple mission, pushed into the jaws of a demon beast by an outer disciple named Zhou Shuangquan. It was the very man Chang Qianqian had clung to.
You erected a gravestone for her and swore in your heart to become an immortal. At 25, while gathering herbs on a mountain, you fell into a ravine and landed by the riverside, your bones broken. In agony, you waited for death to come. Then you heard a voice saying it could save you, but you would have to serve as its servant thereafter. Do you accept its terms? What's there to hesitate about? Accept. Guin immediately made his choice. This life seemed rather tough. You chose to accept and soon fell into a coma. When you woke up, you found yourself in a cave. The person who saved you claimed to be the Mad Demon Lord, and from then on, you began to follow him in cultivation. At 27, your cultivation level reached the 5th layer of the Chi cultivation realm. One day, the Mad Demon Lord forced you to ingest an elixir he had concocted, and your cultivation surged to the 7th layer of the Chi cultivation realm. At 28, the Mad Demon Lord found you again for a drug test. Your body ulcerated and bled uncontrollably, and you fell into a coma. When you awoke, you found your face scarred and your right leg incapacitated. At 29, with the Mad Demon Lord's assistance, you successfully achieved foundation establishment, but the scars on your face remained unchanged. The Mad Demon Lord sent you back to the outer sect, but you couldn't bear the mockery and ridicule you faced and ultimately returned to serve the Mad Demon Lord. At 30, the Mad Demon Lord's tests for you concluded, and he imparted to you the demon skill, Swallowing Heaven technique. At 40, you mastered the Swallowing Heaven technique and also learned a set of hand techniques. At 42, the Mad Demon Lord left, leaving you to cultivate alone. At 44, enemies of the Mad Demon Lord came seeking the elixir of immortality he had created. You narrowly escaped death and fell into a river, fleeing downstream. At 45, wearing a mask, you saved a distressed young lady whose house servants had all been slaughtered by demons. Only she remained. Out of gratitude, she wanted to marry you and asked to see your true face. Do you remove the mask? Take it off. Women disrupt my cultivation. Better to scare her off quickly. Guin was impatient to see Lu Han's life take a turn for the better. You removed the mask expecting to frighten Yuan Linger away, but to your surprise, after a brief moment of shock, she resolutely embraced you, and you lifted your arms to embrace her in return. At 46, you followed Yuan Linger back to the Yuan family estate. Her father hesitated about the marriage due to your appearance, but under Yuan Linger's insistence, you were eventually married. At 47, Yuan Linger bore you a son named Lu Qiuxian. Because your son did not take the surname of the Yuan family, her father grew even more displeased with you. At 56, demons invaded the city, slaughtering the inhabitants. You barely managed to keep your wife and child safe but couldn't save others, forcing your family of 3 to begin a nomadic life. At 58, you returned to the outer sect with Yuan Linger and your 11-year-old son Lu Qiuxian. Your son was discovered to have the rare heavenly spirit root and was taken as a disciple by a Mahayana realm elder. Your family stayed up all night, unable to sleep. Upon reaching this point, Guan's face broke into a smile. He was on the verge of feeling despondent. He hadn't even had the chance to make choices and felt like Lu Han could die at any moment. Too bitter. Chapter 337, River of Destiny. At the age of 59, your son Lu Qiuxian succeeded in foundation establishment, making a name for himself in the outer sect of the Tao court. Consequently, you received widespread pursuit and admiration. Even the 2 companions who had traveled through time with you came to congratulate you, making you reflect on how life and fate are elusive. At 60, you successfully reached core formation. At 63, your son Lu Qiuxian awakened the supreme treasure body, shocking the Tao court. He was exceptionally accepted into the Tao court, and from then on, you and your son parted ways. Supreme treasure body? Isn't that the treasure body once possessed by the divine exotic ghost king, Impermanence Tian? Guin was even more hopeful for this cycle of reincarnation evolution. This lifetime, will he rise against the heavens through his son? What followed in the cycle of reincarnation was all about cultivation, waiting until 100 years later. At 172, you successfully broke through to the nascent soul realm. You had just shared the news with your wife, Yuan Linger, when suddenly you received the terrible news that your son Lu Qiuxian had fallen, his essence blood consumed by another. Upon hearing this, your wife Yuan Linger fainted on the spot. At 173,
You finally uncovered the truth behind Lu Qixian's death. He died at the hands of the crown prince of the strongest divine dynasty of the era, who was also a direct disciple of the Tao court and had already stepped into the immortal path realm. The gap between your statuses was vast. Lu Qixian's master sighed and hoped you could let go of this matter. At 174, your wife Yuan Linger died of sorrow. After burying her, you left the outer sect of the Tao court. At 176, you couldn't abide the injustice you witnessed, saving a group of mortals. Before you left, an old man stopped you, declaring that your chief fortune was extraordinary and that there was a turn of fate in store for you. He offered to cast a divination for you, to help you find this turning point. Do you accept his divination for you?
Yes.
Let alone Lu Han, even just observing made Guan feel desperate. With such poor aptitude and cultivation techniques, when would Lu Han ever seek revenge? You accepted the old man's divination. During the process, his chi blood ran amok, and he spat out reverse-flowing blood. Before collapsing, he told you that your turn of fate lay within Burial Immortal Ridge. After you confirmed that the old man was unharmed, you headed for Burial Immortal Ridge. At 185, you finally reached Burial Immortal Ridge. You learned it was a death zone for mortals. Even creatures of the immortal path struggled to survive there. Yet you resolutely entered Burial Immortal Ridge. What followed were various perilous encounters. Guan was on edge, fearing that Lu Han might suddenly die young. At 192, you stumbled upon an abandoned cave and unexpectedly discovered a stele inscribed with bizarre and complex characters. As you wandered about, you accidentally triggered a mechanism. In a panic, your blood splashed onto the stele as you collided with it, and soon after, a mysterious force drew you inside the stele. You arrived within the miniature world of the Chenkuan Saint Emperor and met the remnant soul of the Chenkuan Saint Emperor. After some negotiation, you ultimately became a disciple of the Chenkuan Saint Emperor. At 200, under the guidance of the Chenkuan Saint Emperor, you cultivated the supreme treasure body. Your physical body was reborn, and you regained the appearance of a 20-year-old with no scars on your face. Only your hair turned white. At 210, you broke through the divinity transformation realm. Things are looking up. Chenkuan Saint Emperor? Just by the sound of it, he must be powerful. Guan was also excited, for he would feel Lu Han's experiences as the memories of the cycle of reincarnation flowed into his mind. Naturally, he hoped the memories would not be so filled with hardship. What came next were constant breakthroughs, practicing spells and divine skills. At 250, you broke through the void crossing realm. At 317, you broke through the unification realm. At 430, you broke through the mystic heart realm. At 431, the Chenkuan Saint Emperor called you forth, saying his remnant soul had little time left. He wanted to help his supreme treasure body step into the supreme Tao body before his soul dissipated, but it required enduring unimaginable pain. Do you accept? Accept. Guan made his choice without hesitation. You accepted the help of the Chenkuan Saint Emperor. After several months of tempering, you successfully cultivated the supreme Tao body, causing a phenomenon that alarmed the Tao rules of great heaven and earth. You gained the divine aspect of the supreme immortal. At 440, you left the miniature world of the Chenkuan Saint Emperor and returned to the mortal world. Upon reaching Burial Immortal Ridge, you were attacked by a Mahayana realm cultivator with an ancient treasure body. You slew the assailant, breaching the realm gap, and inadvertently consumed their essence blood, further strengthening your physique. Over the next 50 years, Lu Han left Burial Immortal Ridge, seeking out cultivators with ancient treasure bodies. Some were successful hunts, some were not, but in any case, he always managed to escape. Guan saw traces of impermanence Tian in him. Perhaps this was the destiny of the supreme treasure body. Until the age of 600, Lu Han, under attack from several Nirvana realm great cultivators, forcefully underwent tribulation crossing. He used the heavenly tribulation to obliterate his foes and stepped into the immortal path realm. After that, Lu Han entered the path of the unbeatable. At 720, he found the divine dynasty's crown prince, executed him, and consumed his essence blood. His cultivation level skyrocketed. Concurrently, the emperor of the divine dynasty, enraged, issued a kill order against him. Lu Han fled while killing his enemies. Guan had few chances to choose, mostly deciding whether to save or kill. After numerous prompts, Lu Han finally reached the age of 10,000. His cultivation level reached the wandering immortal realm, making him the #1 prodigy of the era. However, he was attacked by the carefree primordial immortal and was in critical condition. Fortunately, a great power from the Tao court intervened, and he returned to the Tao court. The two companions who had accompanied him through time had long since turned to dust. Revisiting the old places, he entered a state of path enlightenment, perceiving the power of time. The master of the Tao court wished to take Lu Han as his disciple. Lu Han hesitated, and Guan helped him choose to accept. From then on, Lu Han became the top disciple of the Tao court, sweeping through his peers and standing out amongst his fellow heaven's prodigies. Guan helped him reject numerous proposals from daughters of heaven. Outside the Tao court, Lu Han vanquished demons and evildoers, rescued those in pain and suffering, and established a holy name. At the age of 20,000, Lu Han stepped into the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, becoming the youngest heaven and earth flying immortal in the history of the Tao court. At 50,000, Lu Han once again broke the records of the Tao court by becoming the youngest carefree primordial immortal. At 60,000, Lu Han ventured alone into the Divine Dynasty, executed the Emperor of the Divine Dynasty in front of all the powerhouses, and in the Emperor's treasure Botus Bone Palace, he found the remains of his son, Lu Qiuxian. Guan was immersed in Lu Han's legendary life, with Lu Han living more and more splendidly. Compared to the domineering ways of Long Zhan, he was reckless and unfettered, yet he didn't lose his sense of righteousness. At 100,000, Lu Han consumed the essence blood of thousands of treasure bodies and cultivated the awe-inspiring Supreme Saint body. At 200,000, Lu Han swept across the great heaven and earth, becoming a living myth. At 250,000, Lu Han encountered the Taoist tide in the cosmos. Amidst the waves of the Tao, he perceived the true meaning of Tao and shaped the primordial karmic body. At 300,000, Lu Han reached the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, traversed the cosmos, and returned to Earth, only to find it already desolate. He cut ties with his past, and his Taoist heart underwent transformation. At 430,000, you broke through your own shackles and reached the Tao void mysterious immortal realm, astonishing the universe. You retrieved your life grid. Do you unlock the life-stealing ability? Considering Long Zhan's precedent, Guan hesitated for a moment and chose not to. Don't unlock. It seems Lu Han doesn't need the life-stealing ability. Since he didn't unlock the life-stealing ability, Lu Han didn't undergo a drastic change in personality. He was domineering against his enemies, but he also aided the suffering worlds, continually spreading his holy name throughout various lands. At 500,000, Lu Han met the Saint Ancestor of the 9th level of Immortal Path, who appreciated him. The Saint Ancestor imparted a Taoist title to him, naming him the Primordial Divine Emperor. Until Lu Han reached the 9th level of the Immortal Path, Guan faced another choice. At 830,000, you stepped into the 9th level of the Immortal Path. After the breakthrough, you immersed yourself in path enlightenment. You unexpectedly sensed the existence of the River of Destiny. You hesitated. Do you choose to step into the River of Destiny? Guan also hesitated. The River of Destiny sounds extraordinary, and stepping into it could allow for the understanding of the Tao of Destiny. To Guan, Lu Han's divine skills and cultivation techniques weren't very important. Comprehending the Tao rules mattered more. But the unknown represented danger. Even Long Zhan, surpassing the 9 heavens of Immortal Path, had not encountered the River of Destiny. After much hesitation, Guan chose yes. You chose to step into the River of Destiny. After entering the river, you entered a state of path enlightenment. You comprehended the Tao of Destiny. With your own creation, you revived your son Lu Qiuxian, aiding him in cultivating the primordial karmic body. You wished to revive your wife, but Yuan Linga, with her low Tao level, had already reincarnated. You were attacked by the Black Profound Emperor. In the face of danger, you sent your son Lu Qiuxian to the end of the River of Destiny. You died by the hands of the Black Profound Emperor. Reincarnation ends. Damn it! It's the Black Profound Emperor again. Angered, Guan took a step and arrived at an island overseas, then opened the lifespan barrier. He sat cross-legged on the ground, vast memories subsequently flooding his mind. Textual description and real feelings are two entirely different matters. After closing his eyes, it didn't take long for Guan to frown. A moment later, Guan's frown relaxed, and a smile spread across his face as he experienced the beautiful process of a family depending on one another. Time passed rapidly. An ancient hour later, Guan returned to the Juhua sect, sitting at a table with cold tea. He placed a hand on the table and closed his eyes again, carefully feeling Lu Han's life experience. Facing the Black Profound Emperor was like making the wrong bet, but stepping into the River of Destiny was not. He gained a profound understanding of the Tao of Destiny, and he also shared the feelings of Lu Han when he sent his son away. Lu Han lived for more than 800,000 years and experienced everything. Before his death, he was able to revive his son, dying without regrets. In the final battle, Lu Han still demonstrated his strength, leaving an indelible wound on the Black Profound Emperor, with the injury mark landing above the Emperor's left brow. Between the memories of two lives, Guan couldn't determine whether the Black Profound Emperor faced by Long Zhan was stronger or the one faced by Lu Han was. Both were far inferior to the Black Profound Emperor in strength. Lu Han managed to injure the Black Profound Emperor primarily because of his special divine skills. But right after injuring the Emperor, he was instantly killed. For now, Guan set aside his anger towards the Black Profound Emperor, immersing himself in the understanding of the Tao of Destiny. As day turned to night and the moon rose, he sat there, unmoving. 3 days later, a figure pushed open the door, bringing a wave of fragrance that altered Guan's gaze. "Why are you here?" Jiang Qiong asked with joy, swiftly taking a seat at the table. As she looked at Guan, the happiness on her face couldn't be concealed. Guan looked at her, his eyes regaining their clarity, yet that one glance made her heart involuntarily tremble. Somehow, Jiang Qiong felt he was in low spirits, and her smile vanished accordingly. Chapter 338, Destruction Tao Seal. What's wrong with you? Jiang Qiong asked with a furrowed brow, her expression growing colder as she continued. Is someone giving you a hard time? Hearing this, Guan revealed a smile and said, It's nothing, I was just thinking about the story of a book. Really? Asked Jiang Qiong, looking doubtful. Truly, Guan laughed. Actually, I was thinking of leaving before you finished your seclusion. That way you might feel guilty for missing me. But you came so quickly, it caught me a little off guard. After all, he was a divine thought true immortal. Even though Lu Han's memories were heavy and vast, he could quickly detach from them. To him, Lu Han was just a past life. Lu Han was him, but he was Guan. With Guan's words, the worry in Jiang Qiong's heart dissipated. She rolled her eyes at him and said in an irritated tone, You sure have quite the imagination. I wouldn't feel the slightest bit guilty. Is that so? It seems I've overestimated our relationship. Humph. But I'm still quite happy that you came looking for me. It's rare to see you leave the Supreme Sect. It's just that I suddenly thought of you. Every time, it's you who comes to find me. It's about time I came to you, especially since the Supreme Sect and the Juhua Sect have established a good relationship. The two chatted away. As Guan spoke, he observed Jiang Qiong's fate, peering into her destiny. Without undergoing nirvana, all mortals are just spirits. Guan could see the end of Jiang Qiong's life with one glance. Jiang Qiong's fate was remarkably intricate, with innumerable variations, essentially a multitude of possible trajectories. Within her destiny, Guan could not see himself, but he knew the reason there were so many branches in Jiang Qiong's future was because of him. His choices could change her destiny. However, all branches of destiny flowed toward the same conclusion: death. Some led to peaceful passing, others to death in battle, and some to deviation during cultivation, resembling a tree of fate spreading its branches. Fate seemed so cruel. Having fused with Lu Han's life experiences, Guan had a deeper insight into the workings of fate, understanding the mysterious forces that could, at any moment, disperse predestined paths. Guan conjectured that these were perhaps the slivers of opportunity left by the 3,000 Great Tao, the slim chance for sentient beings to transcend mortal limits. As long as Jiang Qiong could achieve nirvana, her destiny would be toppled and reshaped. Guan thought of his own fate. What was it like? Being part of it, he could not peer into his own destiny. Fate was the confluence of all causality in life.
Although those who could peer into fate could not see their own destinies, they could deduce the causality related to themselves and make predictions. If Guan could observe Zhang Qiong's fate, then surely more powerful beings could perceive the destiny of a divine thought true immortal. Fate was not set in stone, the masses lacked the power to change their choices, merely swept along by the grandeur of the mortal world. Beings above the 9 heavens of the immortal path could certainly see the great currents enveloping the divine thought true immortal. How then could one transcend fate? During his conversation with Zhang Qiong, Guan continued to ponder this question. 2 ancient hours later, Guan stood up to take his leave. Can't you stay a couple more days? Zhang Qiong asked, trying to persuade him to stay. I've been out for 4 days already. It's time to go back. There are several medicine valleys waiting for my management, Guan replied. Zhang Qiong glared at him. What's the point of having so many disciples? By that reasoning, as the leader of a sect, shouldn't I be even busier? We're different, Guan said, shaking his head. Besides, now that I've come once, it will definitely be more convenient in the future. We are both cultivators. There will be plenty of opportunities to meet. Zhang Qiong huffed, unable to persuade him, and could only send him off. She escorted Guan all the way to the gate of the Juhua sect. After he flew away, she remained standing there, gazing in the direction he departed. The Juhua sect disciples guarding the gate curiously wondered about the relationship between that man and their sect leader, who had personally seen him off. On the way back, Guan was targeted by some people, which Zhang Qiong secretly took care of from the shadows. Because of Zhang Qiong's follow-up, Guan's speed back to the valley slowed down. Once Zhang Qiong was no longer following him, he was still 10,000 miles away from the supreme sect when he stepped into it. Next, he planned to spend time comprehending the way of fate. As time trickled by, 20 years passed in the blink of an eye. For Guan, those 20 years flew by quickly. Aside from gathering medicinal herbs, he spent most of his time confined in his room. Many new disciples completed their foundation establishment without ever having the chance to interact with him. An Xian became the leading disciple of the Third Medicine Valley, with the power to distribute foundation establishment pills. She had 20 deacons under her command, and the Medicine Valley was managed in an orderly fashion. This year, at the beginning of summer, Guan stepped out of his door and strolled downstairs. He looked up at the azure sky and felt an immense sense of freedom and joy, a contented smile spreading across his face. His meditation on the way of fate could be put on hold for now. He planned to relax for a few years. In these 20 years, he had mastered Lu Han's strongest divine skill, named the Destruction Dao Seal. The Destruction Dao Seal was gained from Lu Han's comprehension of the River of Fate. This divine skill could strip away an enemy's causality, causing them to be repelled by the rules of heaven and earth and leaving indelible scars. This damage would become an eternal flaw in his opponent. Lu Han had used this divine skill to injure the Black Profound Emperor. If Guan encountered the Black Profound Emperor in the future, he would be able to identify him through the scars left by the Destruction Dao Seal. No matter which divine skills the opponent used, they could not hide the wounds caused by the Destruction Dao Seal. Of course, without knowing the full strength of the Black Profound Emperor, Guan would try to avoid using the abilities of Lu Han, Xiao Shengtian, and Chu Lu. Being slain thrice by the Black Profound Emperor was no coincidence. Surely the Emperor was seeking him. As Guan pondered the Black Profound Emperor, Ji Xiaoyu approached him, examining him closely. You seem to have changed somehow, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Guan glanced at her and said with a soft laugh, Perhaps I've become more handsome. Ji Xiaoyu appeared thoughtful. Guan could sense the aura of fate on her. Her cultivation technique had clearly delved into the way of fate. Perhaps it was for this reason that she was able to sense the change in Guan. Fortunately, the disparity in their cultivations was so great that Ji Xiaoyu could never discern Guan's true cultivation level. After chatting for a while, Guan found an Xian and left the Supreme Sect with her. After confirming no one was tailing them, he took an Xian towards Mortal World Peak. An Xian closed her eyes, and when she opened them next, they had arrived at Mortal World Peak. So fast. An Xian now felt what Yang Jian had once experienced. The higher her cultivation, the more she marveled at her master's strength. Master, what divine skill is that? It's so fast. An Xian couldn't help but ask. As Guan led her across the clouds, looking ahead, he replied, You guessed right.
It's the stepping path of ages step that you've been practicing. And Zin's eyes widened in surprise. No wonder that step technique was so difficult to master. When perfected, could it traverse the mortal world? And Xin developed an unprecedented expectation for the stepping path of ages step. Soon, the master and disciple arrived at Dingtian Peak. Guan first went to gather medicinal herbs, greeting disciples along the way. News of his return spread rapidly across Dingtian Peak. With Gu An's joining, Mortal World Peak grew more tolerant towards Dingtian Peak. The direct disciples managed to secure greater benefits for Dingtian Peak, benefiting the entire peak. All the disciples privately mythologized Guan, knowing their peak master's exceptional strength. Strolling along, Guan nonchalantly picked herbs, appearing to deliberately enter the lives of his disciples. Everyone he spoke to along the way was more excited. Occasionally, Guan would even help the disciples gather medicinal herbs, picking but not taking, leaving those disciples feeling honored and shocked. Gradually, Guan heard some news. The immortal dynasty was about to emerge. On Mortal World Peak, one could learn about various major events in the great heavenly spirit land. Guan also heard about the long-standing feud between the immortal dynasty and the Holy Court. The two forces had been warring for many years until Shengtian ascended the throne, and the mortal world basked in peace at last. Shengtian was certainly the strongest in the great heavenly spirit land, but no one knew how powerful he truly was. The emergence of the immortal dynasty would inevitably provoke oppression from the Holy Court. Once friction sparked between the two, the tranquil days in mortal world would end. Despite experiencing several calamities, the Broken Sea domain's influence was too small to affect the whole world. Broadly speaking, the great heavenly spirit land had maintained peace for hundreds of thousands of years. And Xin was also very interested in these events. It was her first time hearing about the immortal dynasty, and she didn't realize that the mortal world harbored a force capable of contending with the Holy Court. After a while, Guan took an Xin to a courtyard on the mountain's peak. An Xin began cultivating, and Guan wrote in the yard to relax. His main purpose for coming today was to take a breather. A moment later, he suddenly felt something and looked up. His gaze pierced through the sky and shot out into the depths of the universe. He sensed a strange aura coming from the silent destruction domain. This sensation was distinctly uncomfortable. Before long, he saw a redwood coffin flying out from the darkness. It was a deep red coffin that seemed to have blood plasma sticking to it, surrounded by wisps of black vapor visible to the naked eye. There was something inside the coffin. Could it be another entity targeting the heavenly demon fetus? Guan thought to himself, with no intention of intervening. The presence and absence of concealment of the deep red coffin must have alerted the Holy Court. Indeed, Guan saw many figures flying out from the Holy Land where the Holy Court was based, the weakest among them being carefree primordial immortals. What a powerful foundation! Guan was again shocked by the strength of the Holy Court. This was just the first response team they'd sent out, and it was hard to imagine the terrifying power the Holy Court could unleash if they went all out. However, Guan saw a divine immortal of wondrous dharma confront the deep red coffin, resisting with his immense mana. He displayed an expression of agony as his flesh rapidly dissolved into blood, spilling onto the coffin and quickly congealing. His immortal soul of wondrous dharma, however, managed to escape by a hair's breadth. Such frightening power! Chapter 339, The Dark Emperor. From the battle court as evening approached, Guan stood up and stretched languidly, his gaze turning towards outer heaven. The dark red coffin had already reached outer heaven and was about to crash into great heavenly spirit land. An Xin walked over and asked, "Are we going back?" Guan nodded slightly, and an Xin immediately went to pack their things. She had bought some trinkets on Dingtian Peak, planning to bring them back to Third Medicine Valley. As long as it didn't reveal her relationship with Guan on Mortal World Peak, he would not stop her. An Xin was quick with her tasks, and after she was done, she hurried back to where Guan was standing. Seeing her master looking up, she instinctively looked up as well. She saw a shooting star streak across the night sky, falling toward the distant land. "What is that?" an Xin muttered. Guan didn't answer her. He watched the meteor disappear into the distance and then, with a wave of his sleeve, disappeared into the air with her. After returning to Third Medicine Valley, the master and disciple each returned to their own rooms. Guan sat in his chair, seemingly admiring the night scene outside the window, but in reality, his divine thought was directed towards the dark red coffin far away. The coffin landed on a continent 10 times larger than the Taitsong continent, bringing an apocalyptic disaster to all the living beings there.
In an extremely short amount of time, that continent turned into a sea of fire, 90% of the life wiped out, with the rest fleeing into the ocean.
The impact force from the dark red coffin hitting the ground was still expanding, affecting even more oceans and land. It was far from the Taitsong continent, but even farther from Mortal World Peak, eliminating the possibility that it was targeting the demon fetus.
After landing, the dark red coffin stuck at the bottom of a giant pit, motionless, with no sign of the lid opening.
Night passed and day rose. Before descending the stairs, Guan saw that the dark red coffin still hadn't opened, so he stopped thinking about it and went downstairs to follow his disciples in their morning exercise. The morning exercise was a tradition of Third Medicine Valley, and occasionally great cultivators who came to play chess would join in. The discipline during the exercise wasn't strict. Disciples could interact with each other, creating a harmonious atmosphere. After the morning exercise, Yu Yingying approached Shen Xinzi hesitantly. Shen Xinzi was sitting under a tree, with a copy of Journey to the West in his hands. Have you been feeling inexplicably anxious since last night? Feeling very unsettled? Shen Xinzi asked calmly without looking up at her. Yu Yingying nodded hastily and said, I've never felt like this before, I won't have to. If I have to become that, you can kill me in advance. Shen Xinzi looked up at her in surprise. Yu Yingying thought he was questioning her and explained in a low voice, the heavenly demon should not be so easy to perish. My suicide definitely wouldn't work. You are an enlightened monk, you know how to eliminate demons, I don't want to hurt others. Shen Xinzi looked deeply at her and said, Don't worry, in this lifetime, it is very hard for you to turn into a heavenly demon.
The reason you're feeling this is probably because the natural enemy of the heavenly demons has arrived.
He had also sensed the commotion from the night before. His cultivation realm was high, and his unease far surpassed Yu Yingying's, which was why he picked up Journey to the West, to try and distract himself. Really? What is the natural enemy of the heavenly demons? What should I do? Yu Yingying asked eagerly. Shen Xinzi lowered his head and said, Do nothing, continue with your cultivation practice, and get used to it. Yu Yingying was stunned and could only walk away full of thoughts. On the other hand, Guan, who was patrolling Medicine Valley on Blood Prison Great Saint, heard the conversation between Yu Yingying and Shen Xinzi. The natural enemy of heavenly demons? Guan took off Qing Tian Peak from his waist, then lifted it up, and sent his divine thought into it. Immediately after, he arrived inside an old temple.
He was about to speak when a man in black appeared and asked, Have you made up your mind?
Guan shook his head, changing the subject to ask, Do your heavenly demons have a natural enemy? The man in black frowned upon hearing this and asked warily, What do you mean? Since when do heavenly demons have a natural enemy? Guan then waved his sleeve, and an illusion appeared between them. The man in black's expression dramatically changed when he saw the dark red coffin. Seeing his reaction, Guan was not in a hurry. He waited for him to speak. The man in black's hands clenched into fists inside his sleeves. Taking a deep breath, he said through gritted teeth, He is coming for the great emperor, but his arrival will also bring disaster to great heaven and earth. The fact that he can enter indicates that Holy Court also plans to use him to eradicate the heavenly demons within the great heavenly spirit land. Who is he? Guan asked. His name is the Dark War Emperor, no one knows his origins, he once wreaked havoc in the Silent Destruction domain. I only know he comes from the ancient Battle Court, the man in black answered. Battle Court? The forces established by Long Zhan?
Guan kept his composure and further inquired, What is the origin of the Battle Court?
The man in black looked at him before saying, The Battle Court is a legend of the Silent Destruction domain. Legend has it that there once was a force that ruled the Great Thousand World, standing at the peak of the immortal path. Whether it was destroyed or left is unknown, that's all I know. What is the Tao level of the Dark War Emperor? I don't know, but definitely very high, the man in black responded, shaking his head at the thought of the Dark War Emperor, making his scalp tingle. All of a sudden, Guan said, It seems now that I don't need to leave. I'll just wait for the Dark War Emperor to eliminate the heavenly demons, and the Holy Court will naturally ask him to leave, right?
Upon hearing this, the man in black became panicked and said, "The Dark War Emperor is unpredictable, extremely violent, and will surely bring calamity to mortal world peak. If he devours the great Emperor's demon fetus, he might even start a war with the Holy Court. You won't be able to avoid trouble either." Hearing this, Guan wasn't alarmed, just stared at him steadily. The man in black gritted his teeth, suddenly knelt down and said solemnly, "Please, Elder, help the great Emperor. As long as you can help with the birthing of the great Emperor, our tribe will owe you a favor. Afterward, I will convey this matter back to my tribe, and you will gain our friendship. In the future, walking in the silent destruction domain will also mean having an ally." "You're joking. What if he decides to attack me?" Guan said coldly. The man in black looked up and explained, "Don't worry, he has forgotten his past life memories. He is undergoing his own reincarnation stage, which is when he is the weakest. Once he is born, he will be a new being. You can even take him as a disciple, and when he achieves the Tao in the future, he will definitely not forget your kindness." After listening, Guan fell into hesitation. "If you don't do this, once the Dark War Emperor emerges, he will surely come after you. The moment the great Emperor is born, he will undergo reincarnation baptism, hiding the causality of the heavenly demon, making it impossible for the Dark War Emperor to find him," the man in black urged urgently. "As if the Dark War Emperor might come to kill at any second." Guan hesitated for a moment, then asked, "How can I assist him?" The man in black was elated and immediately imparted a miracle technique. Guan listened intently, memorizing it in one go. The man in black urged, "Act quickly. If the Dark War Emperor finds him, he can obstruct the great Emperor's path to achieving the Tao. We must not let him succeed." Long Zhan was born into the Long family, but the name Battle Court was chosen by Long Zhan himself. The ancestors of the Long family had not established the Battle Court. This confirmed that Long Qing was definitely a descendant of Long Zhan, who lived in the past, not the future. Reincarnation evolution could indeed project into the past. Was this predestined to happen, or did his decision change the past? Before his reincarnation evolution, the demon fetus was already hidden within Ding Tian Peak. But it was only after his reincarnation evolution ended that he discovered the demon fetus, unclear if its identity had changed. Guan considered this a problem worth contemplating. Long Qing continued to absorb the innate demonic qi, rapidly reaching the foundation establishment realm. This kid couldn't possibly have been born with a cultivation level of the immortal path like the immortal spirits of the immortal dynasty, could he? Guan guessed to himself, and in the time that followed, Long Qing's cultivation level quickly intensified, relying solely on the surrounding innate demonic qi and not consuming any spiritual energy. Time sped away. 3 ancient hours later, Long Qing's cultivation level surpassed the Mahayana realm, reaching the first layer of Nirvana realm, with his maximum lifespan metamorphosing to 999,999 years. Guan felt that if he were to come into the world, he would be sure to attract heavenly tribulation, and that would be troublesome. Once Long Qing's increase in cultivation ceased, Guan used the divine skills of Path of Returning Primordial Spirit to suppress Long Qing's cultivation, changing his aura to that of an ordinary person. For now, using the Path of Returning Primordial Spirit, he could also suppress the opposing party's cause and effect. Before the seal was lifted, not even the heavenly demon would be able to locate Long Qing. The demonic qi surrounding Long Qing completely dissipated, vanishing in an unfathomable manner. Long Qing slowly opened his eyes. They were big and sparkling, and his small hands remained clenched into fists. Upon seeing Guan, he broke into a smile, his little mouth opened, and he let out a giggling sound. For some reason, seeing the newly born Long Qing made Guan suddenly think of Long Xin's appearance when he was born. They were exactly alike. A smile appeared on Guan's face as he began to play with Long Qing. During this process, Guan once again experienced the feeling Long Zhan had when he faced his son for the first time. But the descendants of the Battle Court and the Long family arriving in the great heavenly spirit land seemed a little too coincidental. Guan silently stayed on guard, vowing to never reveal his true cultivation level to anyone around him, not now nor in the future. He had to keep up the act. In life, one must always keep something in reserve.
Guan performed the stepping path of ages step and stepped outside the supreme sect, then lifted the lifespan barrier. He took robes from his storage bag and wrapped the little Long Qing in them. Sunlight poured down, causing little Long Qing to become even more excited, laughing non-stop, his small hands reaching around in a futile attempt to grab at things, for his arms were too short to reach anything. Luckily, the little fellow was not an ordinary baby, or else Guan would have had to consider feeding him milk. Guan, cradling him, walked to a nearby tree and sat down, continuing to amuse him. Bringing a child back all of a sudden was bound to attract attention, so Guan decided to wait until evening to return, so he could fabricate a reason. The woods were filled with the chirping of birds and the fragrance of flowers, and Guan listened to little Long Qing's laughter as his thoughts drifted away. Visions from his reincarnation evolution surfaced before his eyes. It was in the great hall of the battle court, with Long Zhan standing with his back to Long Xian atop the hall. Long Xian questioned him about why he had become so ruthless, but Long Zhan did not answer. "Father Emperor, I preferred you back when you took me hunting in the mountains. Though you were not invincible, you were more like a father." Long Xian left after uttering those words, and from that point on, father and son never saw each other again, until Long Zhan's downfall. Deep in thought, Guan couldn't help but be moved. He would take it as a lesson not to obsessively seek power. His current state was just fine, constantly increasing his strength while maintaining good relationships with those around him. Guan looked up at the sky beyond the woods. From here, the sky seemed truly high. At dawn, the disciples of the Third Medicine Valley had just finished their morning exercises, and an Xian turned her head and saw Guan walking down from the transmission array platform, carrying something in his arms. An Xian immediately approached, and some disciples who were close to Guan followed suit. When they saw that Guan was holding a baby, they exclaimed in surprise, "Master, where did this child come from? Wow, so cute, can I hold him? A boy or a girl? Master, what's his name? He's smiling at me." Faced with the disciples' inquiries, Guan said that the male infant was one he had found in the forest and that he was unable to find its parents, so he had no choice but to bring him back to raise. The disciples didn't question it because their master indeed had such kindness. An Xian in particular thought of herself, her eyes reddening slightly, her gaze towards Long Qing growing even closer. However, Guan did not let them hold him but carried Long Qing back to his own attic. Arriving in front of the attic, Ji Xiaoyu came out of her room to his side, curiously looking at the child in his arms. "He looks quite a bit like you," Ji Xiaoyu blurted out inexplicably, her eyes full of insinuation. Guan replied, displeased, "You don't think this is a child someone secretly bore for me, do you?" Ji Xiaoyu smiled and did not continue the conversation. Guan couldn't be bothered with her any longer and carried Long Qing upstairs. In the distance, Shen Xinzi calculated Long Qing's fate with his fingers and found that it was consistent with what Guan had said, so he did not take it to heart. Though the disciples were curious about Long Qing, they did not pay too much attention, but they noticed that, in the following days, Guan carried Long Qing wherever he went, prompting them to wonder. Months passed. Autumn arrived. The deep red coffin harboring the Dark Battle Emperor had still not opened, but many cultivators had gathered on the desolate continent, even setting up a large array near the coffin. One day, Yilan brought Zhen Qin to visit Guan. Upon seeing a baby in Guan's arms, the two women were shocked, and Yilan breathed a sigh of relief when she learned that the baby was not Guan's child. "It's rare to see a child with such fate, so I brought him back. I'll accept him as a disciple from now on," Guan said cheerfully. Zhen Qin held Long Qing, finding the little one adorable, and asked, "Master, have you named him?" Guan replied, "Yes, his name is Long Qing. There was a clear stream beside him when I found him, and his eyes are clear like it, hence the name Qing." "And the surname Long?" Zhen Qin inquired further. Guan smiled and said, "Take a look at his back." Zhen Qin instinctively opened the swaddling clothes around Long Qing, seeing mysterious black patterns on his back that, at a glance, resembled a black dragon. "It seems this little fellow's background is not simple," Zhen Qin remarked with amazement. Yilan also saw it and completely relaxed, smiling as she took Long Qing in her arms. "This matter should not be spread. Since he has been abandoned, let him stay away from strife and live peacefully in Medicine Valley." "The mark on his back can be considered my doing," Guan instructed. The two women nodded, agreeing and praising him for his thorough consideration. After staying in the third medicine valley for 3 days, the women left. Their subsect was busy with tasks that required them to be away, and they would not meet again for several years. By the age of half a year, Long Qing could walk. By 1 year, he began to babble. Dressed in fine clothes, he became the joy of Medicine Valley. A year had passed since the deep red coffin arrived in the great heavenly spirit land, and there was still no movement, but its presence had become widely known. The various sects labeled it an evil object from outer heaven, and even the mortal world peak was abuzz with discussions. This year, during the summer, Guan sat in the attic and picked up Qing Tian Peak, extending his divine thought into it to enter the ruined temple. This was the first time Guan had sensed the aura of a Tao void mysterious immortal. He guessed the individual was from the Holy Court. With so many forces converging but taking no action, Guan didn't know how to discern good from evil. Regardless, the appearance of the deep red coffin caused the deaths of all beings on a continent. In his previous life, it would have been equivalent to destroying all life on Earth. Even so, the Holy Court remained motionless. Perhaps to the Holy Court, the threat of the heavenly demon was greater, a consideration for the long term. But for the innocents involved, wasn't it also a tragedy? Master, what do you think of that kid Long Qing? He seems pretty clever to me, inquired the blood prison great saint, drawing Guan's thoughts back to reality. It wasn't foolish to think so. Why would the master casually take in an orphan unless the child was no ordinary one? Perhaps even more exceptional than Yang Jian. Guan replied, quite ordinary. He'll hardly achieve anything significant in his lifetime. The blood prison great saint paused, then laughed. Master, you're kidding with me, right? You'll see in time, Guan said with a soft laugh. Unable to resist, the blood prison great saint asked further. Then why did you take him in? Because I liked him. Do you think I need Yang Jian to repay me for anything? Guan said casually. It made sense to the blood prison great saint. After all, Guan wasn't only good to Yang Jian. All the disciples in the valley received favorable treatment from him. In Guan's own words, do good deeds without asking about the future. That too. Leading a plain life isn't necessarily bad, agreed the blood prison great saint. Though he secretly believed Long Qing would certainly make something of himself, it was only a matter of time. As Guan walked into the valley, he saw a group of female disciples surrounding Long Qing, passing him around happily until the atmosphere became even more cheerful. When someone spotted the blood prison great saint, they exchanged a few words and quickly dispersed, leaving Long Qing in the arms of one of the girls, who hurried towards an Xian, looking lost. Guan, come for a game of Go. The voice of the nine-finger divine lord suddenly rang out, and Guan sent the blood prison great saint over. After a while, when Guan sat at the Go board, the nine-finger divine lord with a chuckle, asked, Guan, what's the backstory of that little guy called Long Qing? He had tried to discern Long Qing's fate but came up with nothing. Considering what had happened with Yang Jian, he couldn't help but feel that Long Qing had some significant background. Guan picked up a Go stone and replied with a smile. How should I know? I truly found him in the mountains. Do you like him? Why don't you take him as a disciple? After hearing this, the nine-finger divine lord laughed and said, Let's not. I've already taken away one of your disciples. I can't be that greedy. Seeing him reluctant to make a move, Guan played first, causing the nine-finger divine lord to twitch at the corner of his mouth and quickly pick up the white stones from the table, saying, Our rules here, black plays first. Don't you know the rules? With that he made his move. Guan smiled and followed suit, then asked about Chu Jingfeng's situation. The nine-finger divine lord had settled Chu Jingfeng overseas while staying at the supreme sect himself, making Guan unsure of what to make of his actions. Half an hour later, Guan stood and departed. The nine-finger divine lord stared at the Go board, frowning. Where exactly is the problem? He muttered to himself. No one offered him an answer. His loss didn't surprise the surrounding players. His winning would have been the real shock. Guan was in a good mood, looking forward to harvesting high-rank medicinal herbs in the outer world cave the next day. a move that could increase his lifespan by tens of millions of years. He decided not to initiate lifespan samsara before his next breakthrough. Forget that. Before filling up a lifespan of 1 billion years. Otherwise, descendants might appear before his eyes again, and he couldn't bear to ignore them. The sun set, and the moon rose. The next morning, Guan left Long Qing with Yu Yingying and departed Medicine Valley alone. Yu Yingying adored Long Qing, though she couldn't explain why since she usually despised children. By evening, Guan returned. He hummed a tune along the way, clearly delighted. Today, he had harvested over 65 million years of lifespan. It was exhilarating. The Outer World Cave was his key investment project. Periodically, he would inject more high-rank medicinal herbs into the grotto. Along the path, Guan greeted every passing disciple, leaving them pleasantly surprised. He made his way to Yu Yingying's courtyard and took away Long Qing. "Hey, I want to ask you something." Yu Yingying stopped Guan.
He gave her a look. Not hey." Rolling her eyes, she said, "Lately, I've been feeling restless, like I might bring trouble to Medicine Valley.
Should I leave?" Guan looked at her, astonished. "If you want to leave, leave. Why ask me?" Yu Yingying was livid, ready to pinch him, but he deftly dodged.
"I'm leaving tomorrow."
She turned and walked toward her house. Guan called out, "Hey, if you're really worried about causing trouble, why fret? Don't forget who holds the fort at the Supreme Sect." Yu Yingying turned to look at Guan, the anger in her eyes gradually fading. Hesitantly, she said, "Wouldn't that be inappropriate?" Guan spoke righteously. "The entire Supreme Sect is under the protection of Sword Venerable Fudao. There's nothing wrong with that. If you feel bad about it, later you can take care of Qing for me. He really likes you." Caught in hesitation, Yu Yingying lingered in thought, while Guan said no more and turned to leave. Taking advantage of Long Qing's youth, he wanted to hold him more, as the child would be less cuddly when older. As for Yu Yingying's concerns, he paid them no mind. Many heavenly demons roamed the world. They would deal with the Dark War Emperor when he emerged from the coffin. From the current aura, the Dark War Emperor was still very distant from becoming a divine thought true immortal. Considering this rate of improvement, it would take him thousands of years to reach the level of a divine thought true immortal, right? Chapter 342. Shelter from the wind and the rain, eradicate the heavenly demon. Time flew like an arrow, and in the blink of an eye, Long Qing was already 5 years old. Guan stood in front of the window, looking at Long Qing riding the blood prison great saint in pursuit of a white spirit rat, his lips lifting slightly into a smile. Such days were truly wonderful. Regrettably, peace was about to be shattered soon. Guan could feel the deep red coffin trembling, alarming the nearby sects, which promptly arranged their defenses. The Dark War Emperor was about to emerge. The Dark War Emperor, inheritor of the Battle Court legacy, was set on hunting the descendants of the Battle Court's creator. This sparked many speculations in Guan. After all, he had no fondness for the Dark War Emperor, who, from the very start, slaughtered everything in his path. Should he dare come to the Taitsong continent, he would find no courtesy from Guan. As the reputation of Sword Venerable Fudao grew ever more resounding, certainly the Holy Court would not dare to confront him directly. The great Nether Saint King had been rather restrained lately, as if putting aside past grievances, not daring to plot against Guan any longer. Guan watched the distance for a while before heading downstairs. Just as he descended the stairs, streaks of blood-like light manifested in the sky, a chilling sight. The disciples in the valley also noticed this scene, discussing among themselves. However, they were not panicked. In their hearts, the Supreme Sect was the safest place. Ji Xiaoyu approached Guan and whispered, "I've seen such a sight in my dreams." Guan was not surprised, given that the Reincarnation Path Emperor had ventured into the silent destruction domain. Following her lead, Guan asked, "For what reason? What is going to happen?" Ji Xiaoyu looked up at the sky and said, "I'm not sure, but after such an omen appears, a massacre will follow." Guan shivered, anxiously asking, "There isn't going to be another catastrophe, is there? I've only lived for a little over 300 years, and I've already encountered so many once-in-millennium disasters. Is the Almighty picking on me?" Ji Xiaoyu glanced at him and said, "What catastrophes have you experienced? I've never seen you fight." With Sword Venerable Fudao and the Supreme Sect shielding you, what do you have to fear? You just need to sit back and enjoy the show. Huh, who's really shielding whom? If I told you, it would scare you to death.
That's what Guan thought, but he relaxed his expression and patting his chest said, You have a point.
Why should I worry? When immortals clash, what concern is it of mere mortals? Ji Xiaoyu was amused by his actions and asked with a smile, I could teach you some spells, would you like to learn? Forget it. You know I don't like to engage in combat. Really? Chapter 343. Darkness Strikes. The Moment of Despair. On the edge of the Taitsong continent, dozens of ragged people were heading toward the forest on a beach. A young girl was supporting her elderly grandfather, her eyes filled with terror as she looked up at the bloodlight phenomenon in the sky. Grandpa, they let us come here, could there be any scheme? The girl asked cautiously, her face smeared with dirt, but it couldn't hide her bright eyes. Her grandfather shuffled forward weakly and said breathlessly, Things will get better. Not only them, but other people nearby were also worried and hopeful. Across the edge of the continent, many such people were moving toward the interior of the continent. Those with higher cultivation levels disappeared quickly, while those with lower cultivation levels could only proceed on foot. Guan took in these scenes. With his divine sense he could tell these people were all reincarnated demons. Their soul origins shared the same karma as Yu Yingying and Shen Xinzi. These people all came through teleportation arrays, and as soon as they arrived, the arrays quickly disappeared. Guan probed their karma, gaining some information. Heavenly Prison. These people were from Heavenly Prison. They also didn't know why they were driven here by the authorities of Heavenly Prison. Although the karma and chi fortune of Heavenly Prison weren't connected to the Holy Court, Guan knew without thinking that it had something to do with the Great Nether Saint King. After all, his enemies were few, and only the Great Nether Saint King had the means to do such a thing. Sending so many reincarnated demons, wasn't it just to attract the Dark Emperor of War? Guan disdained such tactics, but it was good in a way. If it could lure the Dark Emperor of War to come earlier, it would reduce the loss of life, and Sword Venerable Fudao would have a legitimate reason to act. Master, what exactly is that in the sky? Long Qing looked up, his little face filled with fear. Anyone seeing him would have a hard time associating him with the great emperor of the Silent Destruction domain. Guan patted his head and comforted softly. It's nothing, maybe it's going to rain. Didn't you say you'd be a man after turning 5? How can you still cry? Hearing this, Long Qing quickly wiped away his tears, clenched his little fists and said, I'm not crying. I just got sand in my eyes. Yu Yingying next to them was also amused by his words, lightening the tense atmosphere. Guan put Long Qing down and then looked at Yu Yingying with a smile and asked, You're not going to keep holding on to me, are you? At this, Yu Yingying promptly let go of her hands and blushed, scoffing. Pa, who wants to hold on to you? Really? Just now, someone almost ripped off my sleeve. Humph, that was an accident. Ji Xiaoyu had never seen such a sword, as if it had traversed the river of time from ancient epochs. Wherever the sword edge passed, darkness shattered. At this moment, not only her but all the desperate beings on the continent saw such a sword. Chapter 344. Eternal Boundless Divine Sword. When the sentient beings of the continent trapped in terrible illusion saw a mysterious sword shadow, in reality, the Dark Emperor also spotted that sword shadow. The sword shadow faced by the Dark Emperor was even more majestic and overwhelming. The dark clouds that obscured the sun were filled with sword light, the thunderclouds parted, and a massive silver blade pierced through the clouds, as if an unimaginably colossal deity was swinging a sword from beyond the heavens. The part of the blade exceeding the clouds was larger than mountains. Faced with such a gigantic sword, the Dark Emperor, with a rifle in both hands, seemed so insignificant. After a brief moment of astonishment, a crazed expression appeared on his face. How domineering the sword intent is. I didn't expect someone in this world to achieve such a level in the sword Dao.
The Dark Emperor said with a laugh, his voice as loud as thunder. His momentum skyrocketed, and his rifle burst out with terrifying black flames. As soon as his words ended, he gripped the rifle with both hands and thrust forward violently. With that thrust, the clouds in the sky instantly burst apart, and the gigantic and mysterious sword shadow was completely revealed. It was a sword shadow larger than any mountain range in the world, its hilt seeming to be housed in the outer universe, delivering a strong visual impact. Boom! The violent black flame like a sea dragon collided with the shocking sword shadow, and almost instantly, the sentient beings on the continent awoke. Before their eyes was a mysterious sword shadow tearing apart illusions, pulling them back to reality. They instinctively looked up, and then saw a scene they would never forget in their lifetimes. A silver sword shadow floated in the sky, of unimaginable vastness, indescribably colossal. In Mystic Valley, Guan and his disciples looked up at the sword shadow in the sky together. The eternal boundless divine sword. This was the enhancement from the boundless sword of suppressing the stars. This was also the first time Guan used this swordsmanship. Standing among his disciples, his face showed a shocked expression, making it difficult to associate him with the sword shadow in the sky. The divine sense of the nine-fingered divine lord had disappeared, evidently also diverted by the scene above. With a focused gaze, Guan caused the eternal boundless divine sword to burst out with dazzling light, overshadowing all things under heaven and earth. Then, with an unstoppable force, it dispelled the black flames and attacked the Dark Emperor.
The Dark Emperor's face drastically changed. He used his divine skills at that moment. His body transformed into black mist. The eternal boundless divine sword rolled over, the black mist dissipating, gone in an exceedingly short time. Outer heaven. This also proved the results of reincarnation evolution. He comprehended the rule forces, then condensed his own rule forces, injecting them into his divine skills, making them more mysterious. Once the eternal boundless divine sword was unleashed, it locked onto the Dark Emperor's causal aura. Wherever he fled, the eternal boundless divine sword would follow, unless the Dark Emperor could dissipate the causality. Unfortunately, in such a short period, even if the Dark Emperor had means to dissipate causality, it was too late to discern the reasons. Guan could sense that there was another Tao void mysterious immortal watching from afar. He chose not to direct his gaze there. Soon, that mysterious immortal left. After instructing the disciples of Mystic Valley with a few words, Guan returned to the Third Medicine Valley, where it was bustling with excitement as everyone excitedly discussed the recent spectacle. Guan stepped down from the transmission array platform and saw Shen Xinzi in the distance, gazing blankly at the sky, lost in thought. Yu Yingying, holding Long Qing, walked over quickly. She approached Guan excitedly saying, "Did you see just now? Sword Venerable Fudeo's sword Dao is unbelievable. That sword felt like it flew in from beyond the heavens." She grew more excited as she spoke, becoming even incoherent toward the end. Long Qing spread his arms, gesturing how immense the heavenly sword was earlier. Guan also acted very excited, even describing the sensations he experienced while in the illusion realm.
However, he was pondering another matter in his mind.
That was about Heavenly Prison. The reason the Dark Emperor came here was because the people of Heavenly Prison released heavenly demons into Taitsong continent. This matter was unlikely to end here. I wonder what the origin of that dark shadow just now was. Will he come again? I hope Sword Venerable Fudao has already annihilated him. Yu Yingying spoke anxiously, and Guan could only comfort her by trusting Sword Venerable Fudao. He was also unclear about the origins of the Dark Emperor, but could be sure that the Dark Emperor had no blood relations with the Long family, no causal connections whatsoever, and importantly, the Dark Emperor's true form was not of the human race. After chatting for a while with Yu Yingying, Guan finally excused himself, then went on to talk briefly with an Xian, Ji Xiaoyu, and others. The impact of this battle was bound to last a long time. In unseen distant places, many great cultivators peaked at this battle. The power of Sword Venerable Fudao shocked countless people.
Wiping out the Great Cold Demon sect had already spread the name of Sword Venerable Fudao into the sight of the great sects. But for the great sects, Sword Venerable Fudao was at most a formidable figure.
Now it was different. The aura of the Dark Emperor shocked the entire great heavenly spirit land. His terrifying aura was incomparable even to the entire Great Cold Demon sect combined. Every being that had reached the carefree primordial immortal realm witnessed the process of the Dark Emperor's demise. Being able to slay an existence of the 7th layer of the immortal path, Sword Venerable Fudao's Tao level was immeasurably deep. Outer heaven, hidden within the sun, 7 mysterious beings also closed their eyes, as if nothing had happened. In a palace bathed in flickering firelight, 2 figures stood beside a small pool, silent. The pool reflected the universe scenes, with faint wisps of swirling black mist visible. One of them, a man in a black robe wearing a dragon bone crown, looked upset, gritting his teeth and said, "This is troublesome. Sword Venerable Fudao is so formidable, it's impossible to hide Heavenly Prison's actions from him. He will trouble me sooner or later." He turned to look at the person beside him. His eyes filled with anger. Qing Songzi took a deep breath and said, "The Holy King is surely aware of this matter. Let us choose to protect ourselves wisely." He was the domain master of the main city of Broken Sea Domain, and the Taitsong continent was also under his jurisdiction. At this moment, Qing Songzi, who controlled the lives of his entire domain, had a pale face, his hands clenched within his sleeves. He tried to appear composed. Seeing the Dark Emperor being exterminated, he felt like the sky was falling. He turned and left. The man in the black robe said sternly, "If Sword Venerable Fudao comes looking, I can only reveal the existence of the Holy King. I couldn't possibly hide this matter with my Tao level. You'd better pray that Sword Venerable Fudao does not come looking." Qing Songzi left those words and disappeared on the spot. The man in the black robe watched the direction he left, unable to contain his anger, causing the entire palace to tremble. Under the dazzling starry sea, an island quietly suspended, small in size, featuring a center area cleared of vegetation, paved with white jade. One after another, figures appeared on white jade square, all radiating strong light in various colors, barely able to discern their shapes, their faces blurry, only their eyes clearly visible. They gathered together, no one spoke, the atmosphere somber. "Holy Minister, was it your idea to let the dark beings in?" a large figure asked coldly. The others turned their gazes toward the Holy Minister, who radiated golden light, appearing like an immortal, his aura vast. Facing the questioning, Holy Minister calmly said, "There are too many heavenly demons within the realms. They use reincarnation to hide their identities. You should be aware of the looming calamities accumulating within the silent destruction domain. I was planning for the future which led to this regrettable decision." The others also spoke up. The intention was good, but the dark beings are too violent, indeed difficult to control. That guy must be the Dark Emperor. His escape technique is extremely refined, hard to capture. Didn't expect him to still die. Broken Sea Domain, Sword Venerable Fudao. The great heavenly spirit land is so large, yet he unexpectedly found the place where Sword Venerable Fudao was, quite strange. Indeed, each time Sword Venerable Fudao strikes, it seems as if he is protecting himself. If the Dark Emperor specifically came for him, why involve 2 continents? Holy Minister, it seems someone is using you to scheme against Sword Venerable Fudao. The Holy Minister, glittering in golden light, had a glint in his eyes, radiating coldness. Chapter 345. The Holy Minister appears mortal world peak, atop a mountain summit. Fu Xinxiu stood alongside Eternal Taoist Lord at the cliff's edge, gazing silently up at the sky for a long time. "Master, to which level of the immortal path has Sword Venerable Fudao ascended?" Fu Xinxiu couldn't help but ask. The Eternal Taoist Lord gave a wry smile. "I have merely lived a few more years than you. I only know about the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. The names of the 3 higher realms are beyond my reach." Fu Xinxiu sighed. That heavenly demon from outer heaven felt even more formidable than Senior Meng before perishing in an instant. It is indeed true that beyond the skies there are higher skies, and beyond people there are higher people. The Eternal Taoist Lord frowned slightly and sighed. "I always have the feeling that something troublesome is coming to the Holy Court. To think they would even dare to let in such a demon. Turmoil that hasn't been seen in a million years will soon come upon this world." Fu Xinxiu nodded. He felt the same way. Regardless, it's a good thing that Sword Venerable Fudao destroyed that demon. But before he could cleanse the world of the heavenly demons, they began slaughtering innocents. The Holy Court is truly confused to cooperate with such beings, declared Fu Xinxiu with righteous indignation,
finding the dialogue between the Holy King of the Holy Court and the Dark Emperor to be absurd.
When did the Holy Court become like this? The eternal Taoist Lord said no more. There were things he couldn't speak aloud. At this moment, not only was Mortal World Peak discussing this matter, great cultivators from chief fortune sects and dynasties across the land, and even within the Immortal Dynasty, were engaging in debates about it. The influence of this event was fermenting swiftly. As summer turned to autumn. Inside Third Medicine Valley, Guan sat at a table while Shen Zhan sat across from him, excitedly discussing something. Months had passed, and the great battle between Sword Venerable Fu Dao and the Dark Emperor had not been forgotten by time. Rather, it had become increasingly significant. It said that the heavenly demon from outer heaven was invited by the Holy Court. Indeed, this world's a dark place where no fresh news can be found. Whether it's the Dao Tian sect, Supreme Sect, Seven Stars Spirit Realm, or the Holy Court, they all have their dark secrets, said Xinzhen, dripping with sarcasm.
Guan responded helplessly. My dear grandmother, can you please not say these things out loud?
Those cultivators are as powerful as immortals. Aren't you afraid of being overheard? What's the difference if they hear? Now everyone's spreading that the heavenly demon was invited by the Holy Court. They say 8 continents' creatures have been devoured by the Dark Emperor. What a sin! He claimed it was arranged by the great Nether Saint King to allow a batch of heavenly demons into Taitsong continent. It's the Holy King. I could not decline. I am merely a pawn. I bear no grudges against you, Senior. Please spare me. The demon soul master bit his teeth and spoke, filled with fear. Guan looked up, his gaze towards the top of the hall. His left hand still pressed on the demon soul master's shoulder. Following Guan's vision, a streak of golden light appeared atop the grand hall, as if space had split open. The light quickly expanded, and a figure stepped out from it. The person was bathed in golden light, so even Guan couldn't see the true form. Guan threw another lifespan detection at the newcomer. Holy Minister, 9 layers of divine thought true immortal 0/0/0. No lifespan? It's not the true form. The demon soul master also saw the figure of the Holy Minister. His eyes filled with panic. He had never seen the Holy Minister before, but such an emergence was not favorable for him at this time. The Holy Minister spoke, I can depose the great Nether Saint King. His first statement caused the demon soul master's complexion to shift drastically. Such audacity! Within the Holy Court, only 2 entities had the power to depose a Saint King. No matter which it was, the demon soul master dared not provoke. Guan asked, Who might you be? The Holy Minister replied, I am the Holy Minister of the Holy Court, overseeing the entire court. The coming of the Dark Emperor was my idea, originally intended to eradicate the heavenly demons of the mortal world. However, I did not anticipate such a preposterous outcome. Guan didn't expect the Holy Minister to admit to this so readily. For a moment, he couldn't discern the Holy Minister's true intentions. Sword Venerable Fu Dao, you have refused the destined chief fortune of the Holy Court, and I do not wish to delve into your reasons. I only seek to understand your stance towards the Holy Court to prevent any misunderstandings between us. From your actions, it's clear you are neither of the demon path nor the wicked, said the Holy Minister calmly, his tone devoid of any emotional fluctuation. Guan fell silent for a moment and then said, I have no intention of making enemies with anyone. I seek only to cultivate in peace.
My previous intervention was merely because I resided in that land, benefiting from nature's spiritual energy, and felt an obligation to act on behalf of that land. Upon hearing this, the Holy Minister immediately said, I see. I can understand. Through the ages, indeed, there have been ascetics like you who are solely dedicated to the immortal path. You have shielded those people, and they are fortunate for that. From this point on, the Holy Court shall not disturb your cultivation. This time, there was a hint of mirth in his tone. May I make a request? Guan suddenly asked. Please speak. Bring the great Nether Saint King to me. I want to kill him myself. Chapter 346, Holy Sword, 3rd Grade Heavenly Position. I must kill him myself. The words of Guan echoed in the great hall, the flickering flames growing more intense, as if startled by his declaration. The Punisher of Demon Souls, held by the shoulder with one hand by Guen, listened with secret alarm. Despite the overtures of goodwill from the Holy Minister, Sword Venerable Fudao was still so overbearing, a clear sign of a character that brooked no defiance. The Holy Minister fell silent upon hearing these words. Guen was not in a hurry, waiting for the response from the Holy Minister. He was not blinded by hatred. He wanted to use this opportunity to show the Holy Court his boundaries and to prove that his target was solely the great Nether Saint King. The Saint King of the Holy Court is held in high esteem. Even in death, it should come at the hands of the Holy Court personally, the Holy Minister said without a trace of mirth. The Punisher of Demon Souls grew tense at once. If these two were to fight, both he and the heavenly prison would suffer the consequences. Amassing his thoughts, the Holy Minister's tone shifted. If Taoist friend is willing to join the Holy Court, I will personally offer up the great Nether Saint King.
You need not accept the Chief Fortune Fruit position.
Simply joining the Holy Court in name will suffice.
Normally, the Holy Court will not assign you any tasks.
When the great heavenly spirit land faces an existential threat, only then you would need to act.
Simply join in name? Guen first thought of the Immortal Dynasty, which had also reached out to recruit him.
With the Immortal Dynasty as a potential rival, the Holy Court indeed found it hard to trust an unidentified existence. Even if the Holy Court was unaware of Sword Venerable Fudao's true identity, it was not important. What mattered was letting all beings know that the recently renowned Sword Venerable Fudao had joined the Holy Court.
Guen actually did not object to joining the Holy Court.
Lacking a stance, one only gathers more enemies.
What he opposed was merely the Chief Fortune Fruit position.
Good. Guen uttered a single word. The Holy Minister immediately raised his hand, sending a golden token flying towards Guen, who lifted his right hand to catch it. Not heavy, lighter than a feather, nearly 20 centimeters in length, and about 4 fingers wide. Its edges were carved with dragon figures, and at the top were 2 fire phoenixes, their claws intertwined, symmetrical, and exquisitely done, possessing an aesthetically pleasing look.
3 words were inscribed on the token. Holy Sword 3.
The Holy Sword is the title I bestow upon you, the Holy Minister explained. The 3 below signifies your heavenly position. The Saint King too holds a 3rd grade heavenly position. It is indeed beneath your talents to be at the 3rd grade heavenly position as a divine thought true immortal. However, since you are unwilling to accept the Chief Fortune Fruit position, the Holy Court cannot fully trust you.
I hope you can understand.
This token is made of the same material as other holy orders, but I have not imposed any other restrictions on it, lest it provokes your apprehension.
Its only purpose is to display your identity to others.
Its unique material ensures it cannot be replicated by other powers. After listening, Guen thought to himself, had this fellow decided upon this before even coming here? But he had to admit, with the deep foundation of the Holy Court, they indeed had such confidence. Above the Saint King was the Holy God, and it was not impossible for the Saint King to reach Tao Void Mysterious Immortal, or the Holy God to reach Divine Thought True Immortal. Add to that the exalted Shangtian, and the Holy Court's strength was formidable to even contemplate. Most crucially, the Holy Court not only possessed high-level combatants, but the number at each realm was beyond measure. As a Divine Thought True Immortal, Guen could now observe Chief Fortune, and the Chief Fortune of the Holy Court was more terrifying than all other powers in the great heavenly spirit land combined, including the Immortal Dynasty. From today onwards, you are the Holy Sword of the Holy Dynasty.
This is a title created especially for you.
I will announce it to the world in the future. I will have someone send your treatment to the Taitsong continent.
You need not visit the Holy Court for audience. Are you satisfied? The Holy Minister asked.
Guen replied, of course satisfied.
Thank you, Holy Minister.
The Holy Minister chuckled. From now on, we shall address each other as Taoist friends. Although the heavenly prison does not enjoy the Holy Court's Chief Fortune, it serves the Holy Court. If you are dissatisfied with this prison master, you may kill him. I will arrange someone else to take over. At these words, the despair was clear on the Punisher of Demon Souls' face. Begging for mercy, he implored. Please spare me, Senior. Senior. Guen released his left hand, and the Punisher of Demon Souls regained his freedom. He promptly knelt down, incessantly kowtowing to Guen. The carefree primordial immortal was in such a wretched state, lacking any of the demeanor expected of him.
Let him continue as he was, Guin stated. The holy minister smiled and transformed into a golden light that contracted and disappeared into thin air. The punisher of demon souls, overjoyed, continued to bow and thank Guin. Do as you see fit. With that parting remark, Guin vanished. Lifting his head to find Guin gone, the punisher of demon souls sighed in relief. Great Nether Saint King, even you have met your day. The punisher of demon souls thought of the fate awaiting the great Nether Saint King and couldn't help but feel secretly thrilled. He was deeply grateful to Guin.
The words of the holy minister had clearly been an abandonment, and under such circumstances, Sword Venerable Fudao had still spared his life.
How could he be anything but thankful? He vowed to please Sword Venerable Fudao from now on. This might be an opportunity. Guin returned to Mystic Valley, settling beneath the green vine tree in the 8 scenic caves. He took out the Holy Order, musing thoughtfully. He had checked the Holy Order. It truly held no traps, not even qualifying as a magic artifact. He had to say, the holy minister was quite sincere. Even though Guin didn't fully agree with the holy minister's methods before, he had now been successfully recruited. That the holy minister had climbed to his position was no coincidence. But Guin didn't want to get too close to the holy minister. Agreeing to join the holy court was merely to reduce trouble. The holy minister's 9th-level divine thought true immortal realm also pressured Guin didn't want to test his combative abilities at the same realm. He preferred to fight from a higher realm against a lower one. Next, he had to vigorously accumulate lifespan and break through to the 9th level of the immortal path. Being weaker than others made Guin insecure. With the actions of the holy court, they could become foes at any moment. Under this premise, Guin had to strive to strengthen himself even more. The green vine tree seemed to sense Guin's mood, extending 2 vines to gently massage his shoulders. Guin closed his eyes and began to relax. Now, he just needed to wait for when the holy minister would send the great Nether Saint King. If the holy minister truly intended to forsake the great Nether Saint King, he likely wouldn't go down without a fight. There was an interesting show to look forward to. It was only when night fell that Guin returned to the 3rd Medicine Valley. The autumn night sky was strewn with stars, dazzling like a painted scroll. Guin stood below the tower, appreciating the moonlight. Long Qing ran to him, arms wide, asking to be held. Guin picked up Long Qing, laughing. How big you are now, still asking to be held, are you still a little man? 5-year-old Long Qing, wearing a refined blue robe and with a lovely face bright with playful eyes, heard Guin's words and pulled at his eyelids and stuck out his tongue, saying, I don't care, I want master to hold me. Guin couldn't help but squeeze his little nose, feeling that an Exian was raising him with a hint of femininity. Master, have you ever been to the stars? Long Qing suddenly pointed to the night sky and asked. Guin casually replied, No, do you want to go? I do. Just a few nights ago, I dreamt that I was flying among the stars, Long Qing said, his face full of longing. Guin patiently chatted with him, but his thoughts drifted to Long Xian and Lu Qiuxian when they were young.